Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Hillsborough Township Planning Board meeting of February 3rd, 2022. Please join me in a salute to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be advised this meeting has been duly advertised according to Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, otherwise known as the Sunshine Law. Notice of the 2022 annual meeting schedule has been provided to the officially designated newspapers, the Township Clerk, posted on the Township's website, and available here at the Hillsborough Township Municipal Complex. Application documents have been made available on the Township's Civic Clerk website, and complete application files are available in the Planning and Zoning Department for inspections in accordance with the public meeting notice. May I have a roll call, including board and township professionals?
Mr. Scobell and Mr. Ciccarelli are absent. Mr. Wagner?
Here.
Mr. Peason?
Here.
Mr. Santa Romita?
Here.
Mr. Hashtag?
Here.
Ms. Smith?
Here.
Committeeman Delcourt?
I am here.
Mayor Lapani?
Present.
Vice Chair Julian?
Here.
Chair Sirachi?
Here.
And Mr. Maskey?
Here.
Mr. Bernstein?
Here.
Mr. DeSessa? Here. Katz? And I am here.
Mike.
All of you.
Excellent. Okay, first up, we have a number of meeting minutes consideration. First up, meeting minutes, or the regular meeting minutes of January 14th, 2021. And I believe the eligible members,
You got it, Carl.
the mayor, deputy mayor, no,
I'm just.
you're just the mayor, yeah.
Thank
You
you
were
for the
deputy mayor,
extra
but, you know. A little flashback. Mr. Peason, myself, Vice Chairman Julian, Mr. Scovo, and Mr. Ciccarelli, who's not here.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second it.
Okay, any comments from the dais? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Peason?
Yes.
Committeeman Delcourt?
Yes.
Vice Chair Julian?
Yes.
Mayor Lapani?
Yes.
Chair Sirachi?
Yes, next up, meeting minutes of February 4th, 2021. Eligible members, the mayor, Committeeman Delcourt, Mr. Peason, myself, Vice Chair Julian, Mr. Santamarita, and Mr. Ciccarelli, who's not here. I have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any comments from the dais? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Peason?
Yes.
Mr. Santa Romita?
Yes.
Committeeman Delcourt?
Yes.
Mayor Lapani?
Yes.
Vice Chair Julian?
Yes.
Chair Sirachi?
Yes. Next, meeting minutes of February 25th, 2021.
Same group as the February 4th, except Mr. Hashtag is added.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Peason?
Yes.
Mr. Santa Romita?
Yes.
Mr. Hashtag?
Yes.
Committeeman Delcourt?
Yes.
Mayor Lapani?
Yes.
Vice Chair Julian?
Yes.
Chair Sirachi?
Yes. Next is the January 13th, 2022 reorganization meeting minutes. And it's easier to say who's not eligible, which I do believe is.
Santa Marita and Julian.
Thank you. Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second?
Comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Peason?
Yes.
Mr. Hashtag?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Committeeman Delcourt?
Yes.
Mayor Lapani?
Yes.
Chair Sirachi?
Yes. And finally, the January 13th, 2022 regular meeting minutes. And I believe
Same group.
Same group that's eligible. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Peason?
Yes.
Mr. Hashtag?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Committeeman Delcourt?
Yes.
Mayor Lapani? Yes. Chair Sirachi?
Yes, we do not have any resolutions for consideration. Next up, a couple of items under planning board business. First is the extension of Tnm contract.
Mr. Chairman, we've done this before. There are a couple of applications that were long-lived, to say the least, took over a year. So rather than changing engineers in midstream, there's still a couple out there that need a compliance review. Campus, for instance. and cost cutters. So it just makes more sense, we believe, to just let T&M finish them out completely.
Yep, and it's more cost effective too, so,
Make a motion?
thank you. Your second?
Second?
Okay, any comments? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Beeson?
Yes.
Mr. Armita?
Yes.
Mr. Hestag?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
yes,
Committeeman Delcor?
Yes.
Mayor LaPani?
Yes.
Vice Chair Julian?
Yes.
Chair Sarachi?
Yes, and the last item is the 2021 Board of Adjustments Annual Report, similar to our annual report. Anything to highlight out of there, Mr. Maskey?
Just for information purposes.
Okay,
Just for information purposes for the board, that's all.
okay, you. Motion to adopt? Or
It's just a reset, a
yeah, just
receipt.
reset.
Second.
Is there any comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Beeson?
Yes.
Mr. Armita?
Yes.
Mr. Hestag?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
yes,
Committeeman Delcor?
Yes.
Mayor LaPani?
Yes.
Vice Chair Julian?
Yes.
Chair Sarachi?
Yes. Next is business from the floor. It's for items that are not on the agenda. If there's anyone that would like to provide commentary on any topics or issues to the planning board, you may come up at this time. We have adopted a 5-minute duration for such comments. And please state your, your name and address for the record, please.
Maria Janusik, 720 East Freck Avenue, Manville, New Jersey. I'm also Hillsborough Township property owner, Block 86, Lot 3, 2155 Champlain Road. So you have meeting minutes from January and February of 2021. You have no minutes for almost the entire last year. What is the requirement on providing minutes in a timely fashion?
Accuracy, and I think these are related to campus associates, so there was a little bit more of a complex application with regards to that. I think there was also legal action that may have complicated the matter, but but we have had meeting minutes for the from the 2021 meeting minutes. This just took longer.
Okay, I attended planning board meetings last year. Campus Associates application was approved. First, it had been denied. There was no resolution documenting that denial. Then it was approved, and there is still no resolution. I don't understand. There had been litigation. All that stuff was discussed, and still there are no minutes, and there is no resolution on campus. The JSM at Hillsborough LLC application was also approved at the December 9 meeting, and yet there's no minutes, and there is no resolution documenting that approval. So I don't know why those things are not being provided in a timely fashion.
Mr.
Thank you.
Chairman, the resolution for Campus Associates has been approved, done, signed off by this board. I don't know why you haven't gotten a copy, but they do exist. As for JSM, my office is in the process of having received the transcripts. We're in the process of drafting a resolution including 500 pages of transcript and 90 pages of exhibits, so we are in the process of doing the same and expect to have something to the board soon.
Okay,
I'm
thank
sorry,
you.
90 pages of what?
Exhibits.
Exhibits. Okay. And so there are minutes from that meeting as well?
I don't know if there are minutes, but there's transcripts that my office has.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else that would like to comment on matters not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, do not have ordinances for consideration, so we'll move on to this evening's public hearing. Toll Brothers, file 21-PB-10-S/MS/SP, Block 183, Lot 38.01, 201 Hamilton Road, and Block 183.01, Lot 1 Hamilton Road. Applicant seeks minor subdivision approval to subdivide the two existing lots totaling 435.33 acres into 3 lots. Preliminary and final major subdivision approval to subdivide the proposed lot 183.01, Lot 2, totaling 130.68 acres into 181 lots, of which 174 will be single-family lots, 6 open space lots, and 1 roadway lot. Minor site plan approval to provide a common entrance servicing the golf course and residential tract, and construct modifications to the existing clubhouse parking lot to relocate 6 parking spaces, and waivers on property located in the Roycebrook Planned Residential District. And this application is being continued from December 2nd of last year without further notice. And with that, Counselor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, again, Richard Hoff, a law firm of Biscayne Hoff. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Toll Brothers. As Chairman indicated, we started the application back on December the 2nd of last year. At that time, the board actually voted on the minor subdivision, so we took care of that portion of the application. And then we proceeded to the major subdivision. We heard testimony from our civil engineer, Mr. Jay Cruz. He presented his affirmative testimony. We got questions from the board. We dealt with Mr. DeSessa's review letter, and then we got into public comment and ran out of time. So Mr. Cruz is here again tonight to sort of finish up his question and answer. However, I do have one request of the board from sort of a scheduling perspective. I took the liberty of looking ahead, and we're not going to be on for the next meeting of the board is currently occupied by other applications. So there's a chance, depending on how you guys do your schedule, we're into the early March meeting, and I don't have my architect for the month of March. He's got a medical procedure, and while Mr. Green has replacements in his office, he's the director of toll architecture. He's the one I'd prefer to have present the architectural testimony because he's going to be the most knowledgeable to answer any questions. So with the indulgence of the board, I'd like to do the affirmative testimony for Mr. Green, take any questions. I believe that the questioning on architecture will be much more narrow in scope from members of the public. They're free to ask whatever they like. And then when we finish with Mr. Green, Mr. Cruz is here. He's not going anywhere, and then we can pick up with his question and answer if that's agreeable to the board.
Everyone good? Sure.
Okay. With that, I'd like to call Mr. Jeremy Green. Yeah. If I could, Mr. Chairman, we've got a couple of exhibits that Mr. Green's going to walk through. They'll be up on the board, but I do have hard copies for the board to look at instead of craning your neck to turn around.
Yep. Eric? Do we need to label these exhibits?
Yeah, once we introduce them, we can label.
Okay.
And I'll swear you in. You swear in your testimony you give tonight the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And for the record, can you state and spell your name?
Jeremy, J-E-R-E-M-Y, last name is G-R-E.
I'm happy you remember.
Okay. And just a reminder to use the mic. Sorry. I'm getting the finger from behind you. So.
Yeah, take one and pass it down.
Yep. Take one and pass it down.
Is this one on?
They are?
Those are the same as that.
No?
Okay.
This is another bag.
Can you hear me on this one?
Yeah, that
Okay.
one's fine.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just for the purposes we're passing around, there are 2 sets of plans. The one,
Eric, you're going to have to give the microphone.
Okay.
the one that's marked Plan 1, Modern Farmhouse, that's going to be A3. And the one where it says Plan 1 Classic, that's going to be A4.
I think I took one. Oh, it's coming around. Take one down, pass it around.
As Mr. Bernstein just indicated, A3 is 2 sheets, A4 is 2 sheets. Sorry, 3 sheets. And then Mr. Green will walk us through those, but let me get him qualified first. If you could, Mr. Green, you've been sworn, correct? While I was handing that out. Okay. Could you provide the board, members of the public, your educational and professional background, please?
Sure. Again, my name is Jeremy Green. I Bachelor of Architecture at Syracuse University in 1994. I received my license initially in Pennsylvania in 2001 and by reciprocation in New Jersey in 2004. I currently serve as the director of the division architect for the New Jersey operations team and oversee all of the architecture that's done throughout the state through that operations team. I've been with Toll Brothers for just under 12 years, and I have over 25 years of experience in multifamily residential and commercial planning, design, and construction.
And your license as an architect in New Jersey remains current?
That is correct.
And you've been accepted as a qualified in the field of architecture in front of planning and zoning boards across the state of New Jersey?
Numerous times.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I'd offer Mr. Green qualified to testify in the field of architecture.
Okay, is there any objections from anyone on the board? No, we will accept, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Green, we've handed out some exhibits, A3 and A4. The A3 is up on the screen. It's noted as Royce Brook 55. You were here for the testimony of Mr. Cruz, correct?
I was.
Okay. And Mr. Cruz described, we've got two different lot sizes with respect to this project. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And on each of those varying lot sizes are going to be varying single-family footprints. Is that right?
That is correct.
All right. So the first one we're going to walk through here is the A3. It denotes the 55-foot product. Can you give a description of how that works from just a model floor and then a floor plan perspective?
Sure. So what you see here is representative conceptual architecture that we've put together for this project. While there are only 4 plans indicated here, it's quite normal for collections to have 5 to 6 models and 4 elevations or so each, which is why we tried to show you a good cross-section of what we have here. So listed on this sheet, we have a modern farmhouse, a New Haven, a Craftsman, and a Huntington elevation. They're all varying materials. Vertical siding, horizontal siding, stone, architectural shingles, PVC trim, etc., metal roof accents. I'm just going to show you one of the representative plans, which is the second sheet of the exhibit, Plan 2, main floor plan. These are all 2-car front entry garage models, and some of them do have bedrooms on the bedrooms on the first floor, and some have bedrooms on, all of them have bedrooms on the second floor. Just to walk you quickly through, main foyer, office in the front, a flex space, and an east-west living across the rear of the home, stairs up to the second floor. All of these models that were represented here in this packet, or this exhibit, range in the 55-foot collection from about 3,000 square feet to upwards of 3,300 square feet. They're all 4-bedroom base house and 2.5 to 3 bathrooms per home. They also do have options for a 5th bedroom that would fit within the base house footprint. So as you can see on the second floor, you have your primary bedroom in the rear off of a loft. You have 2 bedrooms in the front. You have your laundry, you have your bedroom in the rear, and your primary suite, again, along the back of the home.
Mr. Green, if you could go back to just the front elevations. You mentioned that this is just representative. Is it likely that the offerings within the community will have additional elevations, and you can mix and match different elements of the model to give yourself different looks?
Yes, we're always responding to market trends. What you see here obviously represents what we believe is palatable to the market, but by the time this project does get into the ground and open for sale, there may be some subtle changes. We may add some new elevations, new model types in. We're constantly responding to the market and to our buyers.
But in terms of the base model, in terms of what you testified to, number of bedrooms and bath, that would be constant throughout the build-out of the project, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So we also have, in addition to the 55-foot footprint, we also have a larger product that's on the larger lots throughout the community. Is that right?
That is correct.
And that is Exhibit A4 that we've labeled in the right-hand column as Royce Brook 90 foots. So
Yes.
Why don't you walk us through a typical model on the 90-foot product?
Sure. As I described in the 50-foot collection, these are just representative designs that we did in the fall of last year. We represent a classic, a modern farmhouse, and a New Haven. Again, all the same materials will be consistent throughout the community: horizontal siding, vertical siding, stone, architectural shingles, trim, metal roof accents. I'll move to the second. Again, I'm showing you one of the plans in the collection, which we're showing as Plan 2. This is a much larger home. These homes range from square footage size from 3,600 up to and above 4,700 square feet. Again, they are 2-car garage, 4-bedroom, and they do range from 3.5 to 4.5 baths, depending on the layout. Again, just quickly walking you through the plan, we have our main entry with our double stair, dining room, living room, very traditional layout, going back to an east-west living area along the back, an office, a back stair up through, as well as a large kitchen with a pantry, butler's pantry in the rear. To the second floor, we have open to below in the major, the stair hall area, 2 bedrooms to the left in plan, and another bedroom, laundry, and a very large primary suite. As you can see, the sizes of the rooms and the layouts are more generous with the larger product.
And the overall theme between, as told does their communities, once you pick a theme, in other words, this is the architectural style you'll go with throughout, right? It's not as if someone could come in and order a I don't know, Spanish design. This will be the theme throughout the project, correct?
That's correct. We control the offering so that you have a consistent look throughout the community. There will be several different color and material palettes available for buyers to choose, and again, that'll all be consistent in the offerings.
And again, consistent with the prior model on the smaller lots, the base floor point on these models as well will remain consistent. So while you can mix locations and you can mix elevations, the typical floor point will remain the same?
That is correct.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I had nothing more affirmative for Mr. Green, certainly available to answer any questions.
Yeah, just a point of clarification going forward. So recognizing that these are models and there may be some adaptations made to them, but it's understood that the height would remain the same as what you're showing here, and the basic footprint and impervious coverage would all stay the same.
That is correct.
Thank you.
And doesn't look like any basements, correct?
They do all have basements.
They do. Are you building these homes on spec or just as what people choose? So
Both.
you build some on spec also?
Yeah, we normally will come in with a model home park, anywhere from 2 to 3 models that buyers can walk, salespeople can take them through. And a lot of times, since they are very popular as the buyers start buying, because they're the ones that they can actually walk through and look and feel, we do tend to build what we call quick move-in homes that are almost the same on other lots as speculatives, or spec homes, as you would call them. We call them QMIs. That's we've changed the name many times. But yes, we will build them, and customers will come and just buy them as they're available, because they may be in a situation where they want to get into the community sooner and there's already a house that's at foundation and going up, rather than going through the selection process and going through another building permit. So we tend to, as a division, probably run anywhere from, I believe, 25 to 30% of our homes are quick move-in homes.
2 more questions. One, the appliances that you'll be putting in these are obviously on basic, and then they can upgrade. Are they mostly minimum as far as LEED, as far as quality of the energy efficiency of the stuff that you're putting in it?
Yeah, I would say that in general, most of our base house appliances are Energy Star, qualified or certified. And yes, there will be energy packages and different packages available to buyers.
And is there any plans for landscaping around the homes, or is it just buying the home, they landscape themselves?
Both. We actually do have a total landscape group that the buyers can actually purchase landscape options, patios, decks, that sort of thing, depending on the lot layouts, or they can choose to do it themselves.
Thank you.
Driveways can be paved?
Correct.
Just don't want them coming back.
Can they or
Will they? Yeah. Because we've had enough of those coming back. Okay. Any comments, questions from the dais? Any additional? Okay.
Actually, I do have one. So you have the 2 different sizes. I know you said there could be tweaks to those. Would you expect that there be anything from a size perspective meaning square footage that would differ? I mean, you offer, if somebody wants something in the middle, is there a 70-foot option that's available?
With the 55 lots, no, because we're limited to the footprint width of the house because of the side yards. With the 90-foot lots, we do actually have a larger side yard set aside for what we call conservatory or elite options that can be added to the side of the home. So yes, there can be square footage added to the 90-foot models, but it would still stay within the building, allowable building footprints.
But the site plan design that Mr. Cruz went over incorporates that assumption for purposes of all the larger lots.
Okay.
What was the impervious coverage based on, like, the size of the house ratio compared to the lots? Like, opportunity to not do too much after the house is built, correct?
That would be a question for Mr. Cruz. I believe that the way that the site plan is set up, it takes into account all the possible impervious coverage, that it would fit in with the allowable, but I would defer that to Mr. Cruz.
May I open the public? Is there a motion to open the public?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, if there's anyone from the public that would like to question this witness on his testimony, please feel free to come up to the mic, state your name and address for the record.
Susan Gulliford, Hunt Club Road. I have a couple of questions. All of these are two-story, correct?
That is correct.
Any elevator option in any of them?
We have not contemplated that at this point.
Okay. What do you do to prevent having the same models all in a row in the development?
We generally control that at the site level, sales level. We typically will, while we could put the same house next to one another, it would not have the same elevation style or color palette.
Okay, so you explain that to your buyers when they're picking out.
That's
okay.
correct.
I kind of want to follow up on Mr. Julian's question. On the square footage of the houses, okay, I know you're saying, for example, 7,000 square feet, and I know there's options available. What's the actual, I don't know, is it the footprint? What would be the actual square footage on the footprints or the range?
You mean the actual box itself?
Yeah, what?
For example, if I zoom in on like a 55-foot example, these are generally just under 40-foot wide by about 54 feet deep with our garage extension. And on the 90-foot, so if I'm doing quick back of napkin math, that's about a 2,000 square foot footprint.
Okay, so on a, is that a 7,000 you're using?
No, this is the 55-foot collection. These are the ones that range from about 3,000 to 3,300 square foot of livable space.
Okay, and I'm sorry, what did you say? It'd be 2,000?
The actual footprint could generally be around 2,000, the actual box itself.
Okay, on the smaller lots. Okay, thank you.
My name is Tom Burke. I'm at 1212 Millstone River Road. I have a question about stormwater management. That's been considered.
That's going to be...
Wrong witness.
That's the next guy?
Next guy, yeah.
No problem. Then I guess I also did want to ask you about, I think you had a question about square footage and how much it's going to be.
Get closer to the mic, okay, so
All right.
people can hear it.
I had a question about how much, you said about 2,000 square feet for the footprint.
That's, and generally, that's an example I'm showing right now, this plan 2 of the 55-foot collection.
And that's on 174 units. I'm just trying to get an idea of how much impervious.
Well, there are 87 lots that qualify for the 55.
Next guy's
Yeah.
exactly numbers. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just for clarification, because it just came up twice, the impervious coverage on this project is not based on a lot-by-lot basis. It's the entire tract of the 130 acres. They're allowed to go up to 45%, but what they're proposing is 24%. So it's based on the entire 130 acres, not on individual lots.
But the lots themselves would be limited.
No, it's
At the-
it's a total over the tract. But they still
Right.
have to meet, they're limited by the setbacks in terms
Right.
of how large they can get. But the impervious is based on the entire 130 acres.
Right. I'm just saying for the individual homeowners down the line, they'll have limits.
They'd still have to meet the
Individual limits,
setbacks, but the impervious coverage, again, would be calculated based on the entire tract.
Okay.
Doug Eden, 55 Ann Street, Hillsborough. So you said each one of these homes have full basements?
That is correct.
So with a full basement, would that add to the, I guess, the groundwater for our community downstream? Your water is going downstream toward us?
That's a question for Mr. Cruz.
Yeah, can we just, the questions are on the testimony he just said. Talked about the elevations, the frontages, the size. That's what we're working on today, right now.
All right, so the 90-foot model, what was the square footage of that box, that house? You said the 2,000 square feet for the 55, the 50 by 45 model?
So I had mentioned that, or testified that the range that we're showing here today range from approximately 3,600 to 4,700 square foot of livable space. The example that Plan 2, which I spoke about earlier, is about 68 feet wide by about 49 foot deep with the garage itself. So if I'm doing, again, quick math, 70 times 50, it's less than 3,500 square feet for the actual footprint, even though this home could be up to about 4,700 square foot of livable space approximately.
And what's the setback from the side of that property?
That's, again, a question for Mr. Cruz.
So what's the, like, again, I think somebody else already asked it, but I didn't get an answer. So what's the square footage per piece of property that home's going on?
That's, again, a question for Mr. Cruz. He has the lot diagrams, which he can go over again.
All right, one more question. The square foot, you said that impervious surface is based on the entire size of the property?
That's correct.
Is that including the wetlands on the property?
It includes, you take the 130 acres and you're allowed to cover up to 45%. They're covering 24% with various types of impervious coverage.
On the whole property, so that does include the wetlands. That's
They couldn't build in the
total piece of
wetlands.
property, wetlands, and the building area.
It's the entire tract, if I'm
Okay.
if I'm following you, yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Maria Janusik, 720 East Freck Avenue, Manville, New Jersey. Mr. Green, you mentioned that you've been with Toll Brothers for how long?
Almost 12 years?
Over 12 years?
Oh, almost.
Almost 12 years, okay. So as the architect, you have to abide by the requirements of the zone, yes?
That's correct.
Okay. What is the zone of this property?
Yes, it's the Royce Brook Plain Residential District.
Okay, and what is the block and lot of this property?
Block 183, lot 38.01, block 183, 01, lot 1.
Those are the lots, block and lots, the properties that are owned by the golf course owners. Are those residential lots? Are those lots permitted to have residential?
Mr. Janusik, did he testify to lots?
Residential
With
properties
all due
on there?
respect, we just had this, there's an engineering process. If you have a question about what he just talked about on his plans, you can ask it. But the subdivision and the zoning was not part of his testimony.
But in order to...
It's not part of his testimony.
In order to build, the architect must know what is permitted in the zone. So according to the information provided, block 183, lot 38.01 and Block 183.01, Lot 1, were to be subdivided and create a proposed lot, proposed residential tract, which is 183.01, Lot 2. That is proposed. Is that lot in existence right now? Is that parcel of land, Block 183.01, Lot 2, in existence right now?
Did he testify about anything related to lots?
He is talking about building on a parcel of land.
Ms.
I'm
Janusik,
asking, what is he, where, on what parcel of land is he building?
Please tell me the point of the question.
On what parcel of land is he building? Because this is only proposed. This is not in existence yet.
Right, and as you've been through numerous, planning board hearings, you know that the part of that would be the subdivision. These are proposals that includes the plan. So you don't first subdivide and they come back a couple of months later with the proposal. We do it to be very efficient. The planning process has it all happening at the same time.
Does Toll Brothers own Block 183, Lot 38.01, and Block 183.01?
This witness would not know ownership. That's not his germane.
Why is Toll Brothers the applicant for this? They have no ownership, anything to do with ownership of those two lots.
I'm not here to do a Q&A.
I'm sorry, may I finish and then you can answer me?
No, not for expediency purposes. You're here to ask him a question of his, and you're straying from what his testimony is.
No, I'm asking if, on
Yes.
what property
Yes,
is
you
this
are.
going to be built?
Please ask him a question.
We don't have a Block 183.01, Lot 2 yet. We have no information about that. There is no LOI for that
Ms.
property.
Janusik.
That's a separate residential
Janusik,
tract, because the other two
You're wasting the board's, professionals, and public's time by going off on tangents.
No, it's
You
not
may have that
tangents.
type of commentary at the end of the hearing, or perhaps if there's a witness that can address that. Now, please, do you have a question about the architectural design?
Is there a property record card for Block 183.01?
Next
Lot 2?
question.
You're refusing to answer my question.
I don't have to
You're
answer
refusing to
questions.
my
I'm not on,
There is
Okay, Ms. Janusik.
It is a proposed lot. And
Mr.
now, a residential
Mr.
lot.
Chairman.
The other property
Yeah, Ms.
is
Janusik.
a golf course.
enough.
This
Go ahead,
is
Ms.
a quasi-legal proceeding, Ms. Janusik. You can get up here and try to grandstand, but we actually have a process we have to go through. That is a witness who made testimony. If you want to ask him questions about his testimony, you can. If you don't, if you choose not to, please go sit down.
I did.
You did not. Now stop, and please ask my question.
I asked him in what zone this property is.
We have a lot of
That
people
answer
who
was
want
per-
to ask legitimate questions. Now,
He didn't
please,
testify
do
to
what you
that.
have to do.
He's an architect,
They-
he's an architect.
We
He
go through
designs.
this every time.
But-
You know the
But an
process.
architect has to work within the zone of his property,
Mr.
but this
Chairman.
property doesn't exist yet.
Okay, go ahead, Ms.
The witness testified, Ms. Janusik refuses to ask him testimony. My recommendation is that Ms. Janusik be asked to remove from the microphone, and another individual wants to come up and ask regarding the testimony can, before it continues to clutter the transcript.
How many total properties, or how many total homes are going to be built on, let's see, what is that? The proposed lot 183.01, lot 2. How many?
That'll be an engineering
How
question.
many homes are going to be built?
That would be an engineering question. Next question, please.
Okay, exactly how many models are there for this project? I think you had stated you're showing 4, but there could be up to how many?
That's yet to be determined. We typically have 5 or 6 models per collection.
So there could be up to 6 models.
Again, I'm estimating. It's not exactly what it may be. We swap models in and out as the market changes and as buyers give us feedback.
So can they be, so whatever model you're showing, if it's shown as a 4-bedroom, it stays a 4-bedroom, or can that be modified to 3 bedrooms?
No, they're all base house 4 bedrooms with a 5th bedroom option.
Okay. Do you know what the lot size is going to be for these, like the largest home, what's the lot size going to be?
Mr. Cruz could testify to that. He has a diagram. We're working within the buildable square area, which he has determined.
Okay. And so, all right, thank you.
Yep. Would there be, is there anyone else from the public that would like to ask this witness any questions on his testimony? Okay. Come on, Susan, one more time.
Susan Gullah, Fort Hunt Club Road. I have a question on the gutters and downspouts on these models. Are they coming, I don't know what it's called, are they just coming down and out onto the lawn? Is it the type that gets buried?
That's a question for Mr. Cruz. They can either be surface discharged or to a header system.
Okay.
I do not know how that's being done. He's the one that testifies to how the stormwater works on this job.
So it's surface or header system?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's nobody else, please come.
Henry Rybowski from Toro Millstone, 1444 Millstone River Road. Are there going to be any provisions for handicapped folks, wheelchair folks, and things of that nature?
In the base houses, no, but if we do get a request from a buyer, we will accommodate that.
At their expense?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions? Okay, seeing none. Yep.
Have one?
You might have said this, maybe I missed it.
Again, sir.
Could you-
Sorry.
Doug Eden, 55 Ann Street, Hillsborough. What's the total height of the buildings, of the tallest building, I guess, the 90-foot models?
I'll show you the 55 right here. Right now, it looks like the tallest home, eyeballing it, hold on one second. That's 30 feet. We're showing from the top of the first floor to the peak of the roof on the plan to New Haven to be just over 31 feet.
That's the smaller
The
model.
55. I'll go to the other one.
Can you show me on the map where the larger models are going to go and where the smaller models are going?
Mr. Hoff or Mr. Cruz can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the larger models are generally along this spine road here and throughout the entryway and this feeder road. As you can see, they're shown as a wider footprint along the back here. Generally in the back of the property is where the 55 collection would be.
What about that little peninsula part that comes closest to our neighborhood?
That's the larger homes.
Right here?
Yes.
That's the 90-foot collection.
And what's the height of those?
I can go to that if you'll give me a moment.
Mr. Eden, I can tell you the code prohibits anything over 35 feet, so it will no building will exceed.
None of them will exceed 35?
No.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you.
Easier answer.
And any additional questioning of this witness? Okay,
Thank you for accommodating
No.
Mr. Green's schedule, Mr. Chairman.
yeah, thank you.
I appreciate it, thanks.
Good luck with your
Yeah,
surgery.
no, best of luck. Want to see you back.
At this time, I'd like to recall Mr. Cruz.
Okay,
He's been previously qualified and sworn, but
do we need
Do we
to,
need to
Eric,
swear him
should
in?
we re-swear him? No? Just a reminder
Mr.
that
Cruz,
you're
a
still-
reminder, you're still under oath and your testimony is still under oath.
Understood.
And I assume your credentials have not changed since December?
No, fortunately, no.
2 months more experience.
Maybe.
And just again, as a reminder, we marked two exhibits. The one that Mr. Green was referring to was previously marked as A2. That's a rendered subdivision plan. And that's predominantly what Mr. Cruz, I imagine, will be referring to.
Yes. Correct.
We had a couple questions, Mr. Chairman, but
Yeah.
it may just be easier to have people come up and ask them just, rather
Okay.
than to forecast what they might be.
No, that's perfectly fine, so, Eric, I don't have to do another open to public
We're
for...
still open.
Do I? Oh,
No,
I
it's
don't,
still-
okay.
Where
Okay.
did we do procedurally, like, I know it was December, but we went over engineering reports and...
Yeah, where we were was, he had finished his affirmative testimony. We'd gone through Mr. DeCessa's review letter. We did part of Mr. Maskey's letter that dealt with some of the engineering questions, reserved the balance of his letter, and then we got, I think, 20 minutes of public comment and question, not public comment, public question in, and at that point, we adjourned, recognizing that Mr. Cruz was coming back to answer any follow-up questions members of the public
So we
may.
covered all the professionals, pretty much?
We did, and we did board comments as well, that as they came up along the way, but certainly,
Thank you.
whatever additional questions the board has, they'll ask.
So if everyone's okay, we'll go right to the public, and Dave gets to play cleanup later. Okay, so if there's anyone from the public that would like to ask this witness questions on the testimony he provided on December 2nd, please feel to come up to the mic, state your name and address for the record.
Hello, how are you, sir? Roger Prince, 87 Amwell Road, Millstone, on the neighbor road. And I don't know if it would be easier, I don't know how many people here previously, a quick synopsis of some of the mitigation measures or what's been put in place for stormwater management may make it easier for a lot of people to ask a bunch of questions again, so just a suggestion. Or otherwise, I could just ask questions. Your choice.
It'd probably be easier to ask, I mean, we spent a good deal of time at the last hearing going through the stormwater management features.
I apologize, I wasn't.
No worries.
That's all right, so you can just ask your questions, that might be the most efficient way to do it.
Just a few questions, based upon the nature of this development was previously a golf course, were there any preservations or other covenants put in place at the time the golf course was constructed that are going to have to be waived or changed as a result of this development?
I'm not aware of any covenants related to stormwater. Obviously, we have environmental constraints that are governed by the DEP regulations and the Delaware Raritan Canal Commission. And there is a previous Delaware and Raritan Canal Commission easement that covers a portion of the tributary that runs to the middle of the project that I talked about last time. But obviously, we have to go back to the DRCC, that's short for the Delaware and Raritan Canal Commission, for any impacts to that easement. Other than that, I'm not aware of any encumbrances past that for preservation or...
How does that process, dealing with the Delaware Raritan Canal Commission and for any state requirements along the waterway, how does that roll back to the board before action is taken?
It does not. The way the municipal land use law is constructed is that this board acts first and conditions, should they be inclined to grant approval, it's conditioned upon us obtaining any outside agency approval that might be necessary, including DRCC. And if DRCC were to do something to this project that requires it to be amended, to be changed, the footprint is altered, we then have to come back to this board to get approval again.
Thank you. Just wanted to make sure of that. So there are the different groups in place. As it relates to like the water discharge, and I apologize for not being here.
That's fine.
I notice you have a lot of what I call wet retention areas. To what extent do you have dry retention areas in order to manage peak period design? So from a perspective of there's so many acre feet of water that are going to be discharged from this property, and you've designed it to some peak period flood unit, I don't know, 25, 50
100.
years. 100 years. Yes. So to what percentage of the peak period of water discharge you're going to be retaining on property?
It's, for stormwater management, we have regulations for rate reduction based off the DEP standards and guidelines. So we deal in several storm evaluations. The storm, that's the more frequent storm, the 2-year storm, which generates a lower rainfall. We have criteria that we have to meet for a rate reduction coming off the site, and that's 50%. So whatever's coming off the disturbed portions of the site now, in the current condition, we've got to reduce that rate to 50% of that flow. Then for the 10-year storm, which is a less frequent storm but has more stormwater volume coming off and rate, we're required to reduce the rate to 75% of what comes off the site in its current condition from the disturbed portions of the site that we're disturbing. And then finally, we talked about the largest storm design is the 100-year storm event. And for that storm event, we have to reduce the rate from our proposed development to 80% of whatever was coming off the site in the pre-developed condition or the current state. So those are reductions that are required to meet based off the DEP and state standards.
So when I talk to my neighbor, and they ask me that question, I say, well, during the storm we had a year ago, all the town flood.
Can you speak into the microphone?
Sorry, sir. From the point where we had the flood a year ago, you're going to add 20% more water than currently discharges during, say, it was a 50-year storm, as a guess. We're going to add 20% more water as part of the discharge, because you said at 100-year, it's 80%.
Well, we have to reduce.
Correct. Reduce.
Right.
You have to reduce it 80%.
From 100% to 80%, so a 20% reduction.
A 20%
Reduction.
to it. So it's so there's going to be 80% of the water that of the 100% that went off previously. You're saying from impermeable surface percent
From our disturbed portions, yes.
from the disturbed portions only.
Yep.
Is there any downstream? Is there any down requirements for you to produce a downstream impact of what that's going to mean to the flood levels from the nearby waterway? Is there a requirement?
We have two requirements. We need to analyze the flow from the site at all its discharge points when it leaves the site. To make sure that we're not impacting the immediate structure or feature downstream of our discharge point at our property line or border, wherever that point may be.
That has nothing to do with this. That has to do with breaking stuff up or impacting it.
Well, it's all has to do with the state of the stormwater going through whatever feature it goes through, whether it's a ditch, a swale, a pipe. That's our analysis point. We have to make sure we're not impacting that feature, that drainage feature. Could be several different
I
things.
understand that. Thank you.
Then downstream of that, our rate reductions, if they're met at those stages, that is taken care of, and that is satisfactory to show that we've demonstrated and meet the rate reductions, and there won't be any impact downstream. As part of this requirement for this project, since we have this tributary that runs through the central portion of the property, we also, and it's connected to Millstone River, we also have to do a flood hazard area analysis and have that approved by the DEP to confirm that we aren't increasing the flood hazard area on site or adjacent to the site. So that's an additional analysis above stormwater to determine, yes, there's no impact to the flood hazard area.
So who ultimately evaluates that? Is that the DNR, state, county? Who's the person who does that review?
The Department of Environmental Protection.
The DEP?
Yes.
Okay. So no, but the canal or doesn't have to deal with that, the canal commission?
The canal doesn't evaluate the flood hazard area, but they have requirements that extend from the calculated flood hazard area. So you have multiple jurisdictions that are involved in that. But ultimately, the calculations and the methodology and the process and procedure is governed by the DEP for establishing the flood hazard area.
So let me just pose, thank you very much, Bob. Very informative. Quick question. So at the end of the day, when we have a 50 or 100-year flood, how much water is going to be introduced in a 24-hour period during a storm as a result of the development?
So from the rate perspective?
Not a rate, just the volume. Let's talk volume.
Let's talk volume, okay. So overall, from a volume perspective, from a pre-developed flow rate to a post-developed flow rate in volume over 24 hours, it's approximately 10 acre feet. And I know in the Environmental Commission meeting, we've talked about gallons and those type of things.
No, acre feet, I understand.
So purely looking at what is coming off the site after 24 hours of rainfall from what's coming off current condition to the post condition, you're talking about 3.5 million gallons.
So 10 acre feet over a 24-hour period?
Over a 24-hour period, right. So that's not instantaneous, it's not happening
It's
all
not
the same
hourly
time.
basis, it's a total.
It's a total. So you're not going to get that all at one time. It's going to be dispersed throughout the entire duration of the storm event in 24 hours, which is why you'll see all of the stormwater management features you referenced earlier, the wet ponds. Those are in place to hold that additional volume, let it out at a slower rate, so it doesn't cause or generate any impact downstream.
So when you represent them as wet ponds, are they really wet ponds, or are they well below discharge elevation, their expected standing elevations?
I think I know what your question is. So they have a permanent pool of water in the pond itself, 5 to 6 feet deep. So they become an aesthetic feature that would aerate or a fountain. Above that permanent pool, there's additional area and volume for storage, temporary storage of the stormwater that is generated during a precipitation event. So it serves two functions. It's got a permanent pool to be a pond, and then above that it's got additional storage capacity to handle the stormwater runoff from the development, hold it, retain it, let it out slowly, like I discussed before, at the reductions we're required to meet per the DEP standards.
Thank you very much, I appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you.
Joan Shuttner, 30 Maple Terrace, Millstone Borough, Hillsborough. So to follow to Roger's question, you need to dummy it down a little bit for me. Based on what you keep saying about the DEP regulations and what we're following, those are regulations for what we call normal standards, or are those regulations that are applicable to the area for the Millstone River Basin and for what floods and for the areas that are impacted by the floods of what we've experienced in the last several years?
So the current regulations have stormwater amounts for each of those individual storms I talked about in inches over 24 hours, and they're based off of different locations within the state. So you'll have varying degree of inches of rainfall over 24 hours, which is what we have to design to. So our design is in accordance with what the DEP and the rainfall rates have been generated for this particular location, which is roughly 8.23 inches of rainfall over 24 hours. And that's the current standard that we have to design to for the largest storm event.
If I can maybe anticipate what you're trying to get to. The Millstone area, that the basin of the Millstone River,
right,
takes on water from areas well beyond this particular project, correct?
That's correct.
So in the terms of the magnitude of this project as it relates to that basin area, what is this project doing to that overall basin system in the region?
It would be minor because the Millstone River has a large drainage basin, and this is roughly, the contributor area is about 291 acres of what we're developing, plus additional undeveloped area that still flows to the Millstone. So out of the overall drainage, I don't have the specific, but it's square miles of area. We're talking 291 acres, which isn't even a tenth of a square mile. So it's a minor land contributory area to the overall basin that drains to the Millstone River.
So storms like Ida and Floyd and Sandy, well, Sandy we didn't have, well, we did what we did. Irene, thank you. Storms like that where the weir is impacted, because if you understand the Millstone River Basin, you have to understand how the weir works and how that when the Millstone River comes together with the Delaware-Raritan Canal and that amount of water, and when they crash together, and what that impact means to this area and to the residents of Manville, Bound Brook, South Bound Brook, Claremont, Millstone Borough, Hillsborough, that is all considered in what you're saying based on the DEP regulations. So now I have a question to you, to the board. Have you taken this study and applied it? Have you gone back and looked at it? Excuse me, sir?
Mr. Chairman, don't answer. The board is not here to answer questions from the public on this application. The board is to hear the testimony and make a decision.
I would just add that is
Okay.
probably a question for the governing body, because the planning board doesn't initiate studies. So
We are taxpayers. I'm sorry, I don't understand the structure then, sir. Because if I'm not a taxpayer, I'm sorry, I pay taxes too. Well, I'm a Millstone Borough resident, I'm not a Hillsborough Township resident. But
Same applies for Millstone. If you were to come before the Millstone Land Use Board and ask this board to answer the same question you did, the answer should be the same response that the chair gave you, which is either A Millstone Borough Council determination, or it is to be dealt with a group higher than us. The board is not here to demand situations. They are to review applications and what's before them, and rely on their experts, the engineer, the planner, my office to the extent of legal, and make those determinations. The board is not required to conduct its own studies. If the township committee wants to conduct studies, that's within the township committee purview, or in Millstone, the borough council's purview. Situation is no different. It's not the board's.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. And I don't know my next question, if this is, it's more of a clarification, is part of your, it may not be. It's about I looked up some of the demographic that were provided on the agenda today from Toll Brothers, and it's in reference to the schools and the study that was done about the number of students. It's from a study from 2016 from Rutgers, and it doesn't give the demographics. When you go through it, it lists out the numbers, but it doesn't give what the study from the 2016 Rutgers study, it doesn't give what the demographics were. So is it similar to Hillsborough Township, or is it, it doesn't really give you a clear picture of how you get point 0.3 of a child, I don't know how you can have less than one, for elementary schools K through 4, for example. So I didn't know why that information wasn't provided from the study. I mean, it doesn't, if you're looking at the demographics for a study, you need to know if it's apples to apples or apples to oranges, is my point.
I'm just confused, but about when you say the demographics, the Rutgers study that you're referring to is a study that's produced that the 0.3 child, I understand your point about 0.3, but obviously when you have averages, you have decimals, so
right.
That's how you end up with those kind of numbers. They're based upon demographic data from across the state of New Jersey based on products or projects and developments that were studied that were put into that model. And when you go to the where people live is what it's actually titled, it gives you charts as to if you are producing a single-family home at 1 to 3 bedrooms, you use these multipliers to get to the amount of school children. It just has charts based on the demographics within that study, and it says these are the numbers to plug in. So it's really just a estimator based upon where you fit in on a number of bedrooms. Is it for sale? Is it rental? And it has different calculations you do based upon those assumptions.
So it's an estimate.
Oh, yes, it's an estimate.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
I believe that information wasn't provided in the impact study that I don't know if she was referencing that.
Correct.
Hi, Tim Baracco, 3 Franklin Drive. I'd like to pick up on...
You're going to have to move closer to the mic, sir.
I'd like to pick up on a point of discussion that we started last time where we were talking about, I had read an article about stormwater data that DEP had published historically was very stale. And you had indicated, no, it was a couple of years old. Well, I did some more research, and in your document, I have the page number, page 57, and the table that was just referenced. It's Atlas 14 that you're using. Atlas 14 has a time warp associated. That's from 1999. And so I don't see how you could use that and call it current, and I don't see how you can use that and say, based on the math and modeling that comes off of that, you're going to reduce current down to an 80% level. And let me keep going. The New Jersey DEP, at the behest of Governor Murphy and Executive Order 100, got an update going because his order went out in January of 2020. He put a 24-hour timeline on it. They're supposed to have something coming out soon of an update, the DEP. They did put out, and is published by Cornell, Dr. D. Gaetano, who did the original Atlas 14, he did an update, and it's an inch across all the hourly intervals. It's pretty much an inch, a little up, a little down, but call it an inch, very even. Percentage-wise, that's a big percent, an inch on 8 inches, an inch on 6 inches, whatever. Where I'm going to go with it is the reduction to 80% on current isn't real. It's going to be more like over 100%. So you're not going to reduce, if you use the right numbers. And Dr. Gaetano said this. This is his current quote. As we move into a warmer and wetter world, it is crucial that the most recent rainfall observations and state-of-the-art climate model simulations of future rainfall be incorporated into decisions regarding flood potential. So it seems to me, I'll go back to, we got a time warp, you're going to have an undercapacity in the design and in the structures, and it's going to equal an overflow, and the overflow is going to come into, I live in Claremont. I already have a stream behind my backyard that's over capacity, at 15 feet of water at Ida. So now you build this out, you're going to exceed the current runoff because you're going to create impervious surfaces, and your structures are not going to have capacity to hold the water. Doesn't make sense. It's a recipe for disaster, worse than we have. So that's my start. Okay. Next off, your modeling is on a 24-hour interval. Well, that doesn't, I guess I'll ask a question off of that. What about when you have a huge downburst like we did with Ida, where you get, I guess we had 8 inches in 6 hours or something like that? The question is, can your design accommodate such a compression of water coming down all at once? 24 hours, I can picture how you talked about flow rates. You hold the water up to a peak capacity, comes in, goes out. If it comes in at too big of a rate, it seems to me you're going to overflow. If you're designing for 24 hours, like, go back to my question so I can make it more clear, how's it going to handle the flash flooding, or can it handle flash flooding? And if not, obviously there's some more water coming in our neighborhood. So you're using stale data, it's, as though it's been static for the last 22 years, and then you're designing to 24 hours, not 5 or 6 hours, or maybe it's in there. That's a question, I don't know. And if you're not, we got a problem from that standpoint too. So, please, we need help. With where this is going, what they're telling us, it all sounds great, but you dig into it a little, and I even ask, do we have a hydrology engineer, an expert looking at this? It shouldn't be me who lives on 3 Franklin Drive, a retired guy. I'd rather be out having a good time instead of digging through this stuff, unearthing things that somebody else should be asking these questions, I think, but, I'm taking it upon myself because I don't want to be flooded out. I want to be happily retired in my little ranch house there. As it's going, we're being disregarded in Claremont. We have a whole waterway that comes through, comes in from Ann Street off the golf course, off Hamilton Road. It floods right now. As I said, we have 15 feet of water in a brook behind the house. Comes in too fast. It comes down a 40-foot slope, okay, into our development, and then it can't get out of the culvert pipe. Now, I've talked to the county engineers about enlarging the culvert pipe. It's small. It's, forget now, 5 feet wide, 4 feet high. They tell you they can't enlarge it because there's DEP limitations. They said that would be a water, I forget what they call it, diversion or something. So they can't enlarge it. So now back to our neighborhood, it acts like a detention pond. We got way too much water coming in. It can't get out. It just makes a huge lake. And I got a lot of people here whose homes were filled up with water. And it's nothing new. It's just getting worse. Okay? So I don't know. Now, go back to Executive Order 100. Governor Murphy put that out there 2 years ago. It was he got the wake-up call from Sandy and some of the stuff. He said, he was pretty insightful, really. This was pre-IDA. And by the way, the storm data that Cornell put out was through 2020, so it was pre-IDA. There's still those 1-inch increments and everything else I said. So anyway, Governor Murphy's, said, hey, we got a wake-up call. We got to have some resiliency. We got to stop flooding people out. We got to make New Jersey fair. We got to do something about vulnerable communities and future generations. This got to be the forefront of new policies. And the DEP was, as I said earlier, directed to update their storm criteria and the rules. I know what you guys have done in May. Obviously, you didn't use any of that. So we're back to the time warp. We got to, this whole thing of storms,
Mr. Chairman,
and climate change. That's out there. With a laser focus.
Mr. Chairman,
it's not talked about here. Pardon me. So,
with all due respect to the gentleman, and I'm going to probably have to say this at other times tonight, the witness is here to answer questions related to his testimony. We are not here for testimony. We are not here for speculation. We are not here to clutter the record on what will happen if. If the gentleman's comments are correct that at some point DEP is going to change its criteria, depending on when this application goes before them for consideration, that'll be DEP's consideration. Your determination is based on what is the current climate, the current law, and the current regulations. And what we're doing here is we're cluttering the record with items that have no basis in fact on testimony, because the individual here is not testifying in an expert capacity, this being the gentleman making the presentation. If he has a question for the engineer, for the applicant, that's one thing. If he wants to tell us about what will happen if, the time for that is at the end of the presentation when he can comment on the overall application, unless he has the ability to provide testimony based on expertise.
Can I?
Okay, no, we're not going to turn this into a free-for-all. We've got protocols here. I understand the emotions behind these. We've heard lots of applications over the past couple of years, so we understand. Let's just keep it decorum.
Yeah.
But I think I just want to get clarification just for even the board members, and, just so that we are bound by the current regulations to make our decisions, unfortunately, or,
The board is bound by the current law.
Right.
The current standards of DEP. As Mr. Hoff indicated to another individual earlier this evening, ultimately, this board, if it approves this application, is conditioned upon approvals from, among others, the DRCC and the DEP. If the rules of engagement at the DEP have changed between now and then, Mr. Hoff and his client are going to have to comply with whatever those rules of engagement are and satisfy the DEP that their proposal meets it. If it doesn't, they'll be back with another application because they can't build this one. But it's not the board's determination as to what the DEP regulations are, it's DEP's.
Can I just say something to that, please? By definition, to me, a planning board function would be to have foresight.
Unfortunately, sir, the problem with that is the people who need to make that determination are not here. They're the 120 members of the New Jersey State Legislature who created the New Jersey Municipal Land Use Law in 1975. And if they wanted boards, planning boards and boards of adjustment and land use boards to have foresight, they should have put that, or they should put that, in the MLUL to give them that. In the absence of such, they can't have foresight. They're not allowed to under law.
I mean, essentially, we can't legislate from the...
That is correct.
From the dais.
Any more than the county can, or the township committee, or anyone else.
Let me move to something else then, maybe. I've got
Just
a
keep
lot
it
of
to-
stuff here.
Just keep it to questions, okay, not
This is a question, and it's to do, let me read it and tell me if it's pertinent or not, if you can answer it, because I don't know the protocol. It's a legitimate question, though, as far as I know. Governor Murphy, in January of '21, put out a requirement. He mentioned the municipal land use law. He put out a requirement in January 2021 that whenever this kind of thing is going on, as in this case Hillsborough, there would have to be a climate change, flood hazard, vulnerability assessment prepared. Did Hillsborough do that?
Mr. Chairman?
Yep, please.
Yes, what the gentleman is referring to is a vulnerability assessment that is now in the municipal land use law. It's required before any municipality can update or make changes to their master plan. It doesn't apply to specific applications such as this.
Okay. I thought something had to be revised to build residential homes in an area that wasn't previously zoned residential. I don't know. I'm not familiar with technicalities, I guess, but it sounds to me like it would have been covered. But okay, if you tell me it's not, it's not. So, how can we, as homeowners, I go back to you, sir.
But sir, I'm sorry, your questions have to be to the witness. That's what we're doing right now.
Well, he got his chance to stand up here.
Okay, but that's what he gets to do.
All right,
You get to question
and
him
he
on
got to put out all this, I'll call it propaganda, okay? Now, how can we get that right on the record, that it's not, it's a bunch of
You can ask
false
him whatever you
falsehoods?
like.
You can ask him.
Keep it to his testimony.
Well, how do we get, all right, this is frustrating, and you can understand. How do we get, you guys are all saying, we're screwed. You might as well sign us up for eminent domain.
No, no, no,
We're not saying
no, no,
that.
no,
We're
no,
just
no.
saying if you have a question, it's to, the process right now.
I'm not putting up with this. I will take a recess. All right, we've got decorum here. I'm not playing games, okay? No, I don't want to.
not playing games.
No, I'm
I'm
not
sorry.
telling you. I'm talking about, you know.
I want you guys to get serious with me,
No.
or tell me how I can
All right.
talk to someone who can get serious with me.
I'm going to just state right here. We have witnesses. This is a quasi-judiciary board. He's under oath. He's provided testimony. Now, if someone feels his testimony is incorrect, he's providing inaccurate, you need to be an expert, and you will get sworn in to say, I am an expert, and I am going to refute or counter what was said. So that's what our counselor's trying to get at.
I'm not an expert.
Right.
I did my own little.
But you were making accusation saying it was a false statement, so you're going down that path.
I was what?
You had said that he made false statements.
He did.
Well, see, now you're going down the path of presenting yourself as a expert.
I'm not presenting myself.
Well, then you
I know
can't-
how to read.
But that's what I'm just trying to state.
I can show you the documents.
I'm trying to.
All right, I quoted Dr. DiGaetano and what he said, all right?
But he's not.
an expert. He's from
Chairman,
Cornell.
but
He
he's,
does this
but
stuff.
we
Mr.
are
Chairman.
under the guidance of current New Jersey state statutes, regulations. The good doctor from Cornell is an individual, and he may provide testimony to the state legislature to change those regulations. But right now, his, and I'm going to state opinions, his professional opinions are not admissible here at this point to refute.
Mr. Chairman, there is a concept known as hearsay testimony.
Right.
Hearsay, ostensibly, it is being presented for the truth of the matter asserted. Dr. DiGaetano's statements fall within that category. It's being provided for the truth of the matter asserted, of which neither the board nor Mr. Hoff, on behalf of his client, can cross-examine Dr. DiGaetano on what he did or didn't say in a newspaper article, which is a wholly different situation than...
It's not a newspaper article.
It's a paper. The point is that it's still...
his paper.
It's still... Miss Sir, you don't... This is... The problem is like the chairman has said, this is a quasi-judicial item. One of the items that is generally not permitted in a judicial setting is what we call hearsay testimony, because there is no way for anyone to examine or cross-examine the witness's comments relative to whatever may or may not be in his paper, his report, a newspaper article, et cetera, or presented by someone like yourself. You aren't if you were here presenting that report, that's one thing. You're not the author of the report. Dr. DiGaetano is the author of the report, and Dr. DiGaetano's report cannot be introduced as testimony or for consideration as evidence unless Dr. DiGaetano is here.
Mr. Baracco, do you, all the things that you want to point out, you're free to do it once all the witnesses are done. The public's going to have a chance to come back up and say anything they like. But do you have any specific questions for Mr. Cruz about some of the things he's talked about that you want clarification on?
Yeah, there is one.
Okay,
There
go
is
ahead.
one. I could go to the page number, but I think you'll know where I'm going with this in context. The question came up once before, and I don't know if we got a clear answer. You talked about, you have your, what were you call them, focus points? No, they
Study
weren't.
point?
Study points. Study points, okay, thank you. You talked about, we're at study point 1 by Claremont. and
Study,
then- I'm sorry, is it?
It's the culvert.
No, we're at 3, we're at 3.
Yes.
I'm sorry, we're at 3. The big blue pond up to the top is 2.
oh, sorry.
Up at the top, further up, I'm sorry, yeah, that, over there, that corner by the big blue to the right.
That's study point 1, actually.
I'm sorry, okay, that's 1. I get
Yes,
them all mixed up.
sorry.
All right, so anyway, all right, thank you. You talked about diverting some water from 3 to 1.
Correct.
And the discussion on that went around like, how are you going to do that? Because if you look at the topography, you're going to take downhill water, but down by where it's at, down by, your new peninsula little development there, and run it over to where that blue pond is. And that's an uphill run. And it's quite a few feet uphill. It's like 30, 40 feet. So the question is, how's that water going to go from here to there? Or is there some misunderstanding or what?
Sure, I can give you a synopsis. First, the blue pond, I'm assuming, is this existing irrigation pond that you're
Yeah,
referencing.
you're talking about the water's ultimately going to go into it.
It's not going into that pond.
No, I understand. It's going to the tributary and then into the river.
Right, so essentially, the grade in the area, and I was calling the pirate section because it looks like an eye patch, this area here is at a high elevation and is at a ridge really that runs along the rear of the property, proposed properties. From that point, everything drains towards the tributary by natural grade. And then from the tributary, it drains towards Millstone River Road. So basically what we're proposing to do is we're grading this outparcel pirate section, as I'll call it. Everything is captured internally and piped across the golf hole that's going to remain, and it enters into the system that's closer to the tributary, which goes through the stormwater detention facility, as I mentioned earlier, the wet ponds and the stormwater BMPs, before it's discharged into the tributary, and then it runs through the tributary to where it currently goes, eastward to the culvert that runs under the Millstone River Road, which then has another small tributary till it connects into the Millstone River itself.
Okay, so I understand. You're taking it westward and then northward.
Yes.
And I was in my head thinking straight north. That's a shorter route.
Right,
That's
no.
not what you're doing.
Right.
I got you.
Okay.
All right, I got you. As far as questions, you, other ones, I don't think so. Hold on a second. I'll go back to, if I may please, just for clarification. I don't know who to look at or ask this of, but, okay, I'm a taxpayer in Hillsborough, and I think you can relate to my concerns and all. I don't know who's looking out for us. Who can I look to in Hillsborough to help us? Who can I go talk to in Hillsborough to, take up our cause as an expert in it? I'm not an expert. Okay, so who from Hillsborough is an expert, or can we hire an expert, hydrologist, engineer, whatever the heck they're called, to look out for us? Because as is a saying, if you don't look out for yourself, no one else is gonna, But we got to look out for ourselves. We can't just sit here and say we're at the mercy of the rain gods and everything else. We're going to get flooded out. Too bad. That's like, no. We know better. We're human beings. We got to help ourselves. Who do I look to? What do we do?
Mr. Vaccaro, so we employ an engineer who has the hydraulic specialist that you are asking.
Okay.
They are bound to look at the site in holistic, make sure it meets all the EPA and DEP standards as far as the laws are today, based on the engineering that is provided. And they're the ones telling us if the project is done satisfactory to the laws that are written today. That is why they are employed. So to answer your question, we can't, and we can't impose laws that are above what is legal, right? So if the applicant. and
Can we
the
ask the applicant, we know something's in the works, okay, with the DEP, with the governor. Can we say, hold up a minute, let's wait till we get a square read on this, and then let's redesign it.
Mr. Chairman?
Would you like us to do that?
I absolutely would.
Would you like, if we're trying to sell your home, and you couldn't sell it because there was a law that might be coming down the road, and we told you you couldn't move? That's what we're talking about. This is not a situation where we're trying to not listen to you. I think we've been through this many times, and we understand the implications. But that's why we have the professionals, and that's why this board is bound to cover the law. But we have to go by what is in place today. And as our counselor noted, if that changes between now and then we'll make sure that they comply with that requirement. But we can't base our foundation upon something that might be coming. We have to do it by what is required today, and that's what the applicant is bound by as well. I know that may not seem fair to you, but I don't know how else you would expect us to
Maybe
make
this
have
is
to make a
splitting
decision.
hairs, but we have, okay, Atlas 14, all right, which, as we said, is 22 years old, and then we have this study that came out from Art D. Gaetano, who he's calling it an update since the last
But sir,
publication.
your concern is with the legislature, not with us.
You're prepared for the NJDEP.
I understand that, but it's not, but there are a lot of things that are prepared for the NJDEP that never become law. And my point is, if you have an issue with that, your push is with the legislature that can go and ensure that the DEP is putting in new regulations.
They are, they're working on it. I talked to them.
Okay, they work on a lot of stuff.
They're running behind because the governor said it's supposed to be done by January 27 of this year, and so they're running behind. This happens, okay?
Yeah.
But otherwise, it would have been out there, okay?
Can I, for the purposes of the record, I really don't want to do Regulation 101, but I will briefly. Even if tomorrow, the New Jersey State Department of Environmental Protection promulgated new regulations, there is a process that the state engages in. Publication in the New Jersey Register, comment periods, review and response, and other items. The mere fact that if tomorrow those regulations showed up, they are not valid. They are not valid until all the procedures and the bells and whistles that the state of New Jersey requires for regulations to be placed into effect would have to occur. So on top of the fact that whether or not the state is running behind, and I can tell you from my own professional experience representing a number of public entities, the state is behind. DEP is so far behind, I can't even tell you. And you can't find people in Trenton because nobody's been working down there pretty much since March of 2020. So do not anticipate that because the governor said there should be something coming out any day now, that even if it comes out any day now, it's not binding until it's gone through the entire process. And by the way, subject still to judicial review if somebody were to contest the regulations. So I want you, not just yourself, but everybody to understand that even if they are promulgated tomorrow, they are not valid. They are what they call proposed. They do not become valid until every I has been dotted and every T has been crossed, and where applicable, the courts. For example, this is part of it. Affordable housing is a prime example of all of that. We are now in year 22 of a 10-year cycle. So I want everybody to understand, not just the board, but the public at large, that even if tomorrow the Department of Environmental Protection said, guess what, we have proposed regulations, they are still not binding upon this applicant or any other applicant until they become official. Now, the advantage may be, with all due respect, Mr. Hoff won't like to hear this, is that depending on how long it takes DEP to review his client's application, who knows what will happen? You may get your wish. But at the moment, the atlas may be outdated, there may be a report recommending changes, but right now, that atlas and those regulations are what binds this board, this applicant, and ultimately DEP in its review.
Mr. Cruz, just correct me if I'm wrong, though. I mean, DEP just updated their stormwater regulations recently. Over the last 10, 20 years, I think we're on our third iteration, but you're working with the current, most up-to-date stormwater regulations, which has been updated, what, within the last year?
They were effective March 2nd, 2021.
Right.
And that's the current regulations that we have to do.
That's what we're working with right now.
Yeah, but for clarity, please.
Well, that's-
That has to do with vegetation and stuff around the ponds. That's not storm data, okay?
That's where, that's a
We're
slippery
talking
slope.
two different things. I'm talking storm data.
No, those are the New Jersey stormwater
It is.
rules.
Yes,
Absolutely.
but the storm data, Atlas 14, was not updated in March of '21.
But the current rules
Right.
have the rainfall data that's to be used.
That's
in
true.
the current application. So those rules cover stormwater quantity, quality, groundwater recharge, those aspects of stormwater management. And that's what this applicant designed for, and that's what our office reviews the plans against, those New Jersey stormwater management rules and the New Jersey flood hazard area regulations as it pertains to the flood hazard areas along the streets that are tributary to the millstone.
Well, pretend for a minute the stormwater, Atlas 14 is in chapter, make up a number, chapter 10, okay? You can't tell me chapter 10 was updated in March. It hasn't been updated since 1999. Maybe chapter 2, 3, 4, 5 have been updated, stuff you're talking about. Chapter 10, where this stuff sits, I'm making that up, obviously, has not been revised. It's unequivocally clear.
But they decided that they were going to maintain that database
Right.
for the updated rules. So even though that may...
All right, I don't know, we're
splitting
talking
hairs with
funny
that,
business here or something. It's just like hijinks. This stuff he's talking.
He's trying to tell you, and you keep interrupting, sir, so
Yeah.
let him finish, okay?
He's finished. I got what he's trying to tell me. It's a bunch of slur. It doesn't make any sense. It's nothing to do with what the problem is.
Mr. Baraka, I appreciate your point. I understand your, do you have any more?
I'm done.
Okay, thank you.
Who can I call just to get this on the right track?
I would call State Senator Zwicker, Assemblyman Fryman. I don't even remember who is the other. Well, she's our congresswoman, but she wouldn't be state. Who's the other assemblyman? I just forgot.
The new
Oh, from Montgomery. I don't remember her name.
Fryman's your local.
Yeah. Actually, Assemblyman Fryman has an office here in Hillsborough. And if you do a Google search. The Senator, State Senator Zwicker, he represents our legislative district, and Assemblyman Fryman. And I know he has an office here in Hillsborough, and if, you just do a Google search, you'll come up with his office. They're the ones that really do have the authority to introduce the legislation that I think you are seeking.
And while you're talking to them, you might want to bring up affordable housing too, and if they want to change those rules, we'd be happy to accept their changes on that as well.
Now, look,
Can we make him have a brief recess?
Yeah.
I'm amazed too. The governor said this is it.
Okay.
Executive Order 100, and it still doesn't count. That's the governor.
Yeah, the governor's realized that he can't make law. He's the executive.
Mike, do you need a break? Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute recess, and we'll reconvene at 9:15. Okay, we're back in session. I just want to again, as a reminder again, that we'll be asking questions of this witness's testimony. At the end of all testimony and questioning of witnesses, the public is afforded the opportunity to come up and state, their thoughts about the application, You don't have to be an expert witness. You can, state, your thoughts, your opinions of it at the end of all this. But while we're questioning witnesses, we need to just keep it, pertaining to their testimony. Okay? So with that, I know there was somebody that was about to come up before. There he switched seats.
Mr. Chair, can I just ask a question for clarification?
Yeah.
It came up during the break, but I know I asked a procedural question earlier. We wanted to know, did we go over the December 1st, 2021 Environmental Commission letter last session?
Yeah, we did it in pieces because different questions came up, but we'll do that. We'll go through the 7 issues that were raised at the bottom.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
My name is Tom Burke, 1212 Millstone River Road. I live downstream from the golf course by a little stream that, like my neighbor there, got extremely flooded, worst it's ever been. And now you want to increase the amount of water that's going to be contributing to that stream, correct?
Not the rate, we're not increasing the rate of water going to that stream.
This whole project won't increase, I mean, you're talking about reducing the infiltration, increasing the amount of impervious space, correct?
Correct.
So there'll be reduced infiltration in the ground. The stormwater will have to go somewhere, correct?
The stormwater is managed by our on-site management, so we're not increasing the rate of runoff because we're not permitted based off the regulations. There is, as we discussed previously, there's increase of volume, but that's why the stormwater management system is put in place to hold that additional volume, release it at a slower rate with the reductions I discussed earlier for the different storm events, so that there is no impact downstream. That's how the regulations are set up. That's what we have to abide by when we design.
And this stormwater plan, this will be approved by DEP, the stormwater management plan?
Yes, this development is governed by the DEP as part of the applications for disturbance in environmental areas.
And then I guess the only other question I have is, I know a lot of people here and myself are against this whole thing because we're all concerned. We got flooded before. This sounds like it's going to lead to more flooding. And so my question is, what is the process to petition to get this rejected or change this proposal?
I don't think the witness is going to answer that.
No, he's not allowed to answer that question.
We're waiting.
The proposal is at the end of the presentation, all the witnesses are presented. After the public come up to give their comment, the board makes a decision on the application.
Does that work? Okay. Thank you.
I did good not answering.
No, back in the day, people just lined up, in the aisle, so.
My name is Tony Gallupo, or Anthony Gallupo. I live at 44 Franklin Drive. The question that I have for you in particular is, if something happens to a piece of property before your development is completed, does that require you to go back through and reevaluate those areas or do another study regarding them? The reason I'm asking that question to you is that there is a piece of property that's 17 acres of land that's literally that right behind Franklin Drive, if you're looking at the map. That area is on the site of Redcom Construction as being a very large warehouse facility, and they're advertising it. They're asking about, taking renters, taking buyers, construction's going to start soon, all of those things. So what I want to know is that if something of that size, because that's not just a small one extra house or 2 extra houses, but that is a large piece of property that they plan on doing a warehouse, which is not going to be a permanent surface. So if something like that happens before your area is built, does that require you to go ahead and reevaluate the studies that have been done regarding that? Or is that more of a grandfathered in type situation? Because some of the things that I'm sure all of you at one point or another have gone to the Claremont section, especially after the flooding of Ida. The reason, and all my other counterparts here that have talked about the concerns about it, is because when you start having water come into your house and you can't stop it, it's a lot different than, it's a little bit of a grandfather clause because we're trying to get anything before the EPA changed the rules. You're talking about, in some cases, life or death. And that's the responsibility when you talk about it's something in there already, or we're following the rules that have already been in place. Grandfathering whether or not somebody can buy a house or put a piece of development there is different than if you know there are specific changes to the land that's going to be able to absorb that runoff. So in that situation, if that gets purchased and developed, what does that do to your development?
Well, they would have to go through the same sort of site plan review that we would. So nothing that would be going on off-site would have any impact because they're going to be bound by the same kind of off-site drainage requirements that we would be. So their impact should be, they have to address their impact on surrounding properties, which, Jay, that's downstream of us, correct, the way the topography works?
That would be at the closest point to our study point 1, downstream of where all our contributory areas. And they would be, like Mr. Hoffman said, they would have to abide by the same stormwater regulations for rate reduction, groundwater recharge, and water quality at their discharge point. So that would not affect our design because they'd be making rate reductions, and what would be coming off of their site would be at or below the current condition, which is anything we would factor in our design. So there would be no impact.
And one more point to the Claremont. I know we talked about it last meeting, but I know some people weren't here. This property we designed, we're sensitive to the Claremont issue, and that's why we spent a lot of time the first meeting talking about how we're actually taking a large portion of the drainage area that currently goes to the Claremont section, study point 3, and as Mr. Cruz indicated, rerouting that to study point 1. What was the total acreage?
12 acres.
Yeah, so 12 acres of the golf course, which currently drains to Claremont, is now being diverted up to study area 1. So that was part of, and under DEP rules, as Jay explained at the first meeting, that wasn't something that would have been required. We could have maintained the same rate of flows as they currently go to that, but we knew that was going to be an area of concern, so we shifted the drainage areas, and we've oriented a lot of the stormwater management structures up towards study 1 because we have to retain it before it gets discharged. So that's why you see most of the stormwater's up at the top, taking away a large portion of the site that drains.
That's my concern, is you're looking at the piece up top, or I can even use that, not if it makes it easier, but if you're looking at the piece up top of the #1 drainage area, and you can see the lines going through where the drainage is going to be, that open area and then the middle of Claremont are literally 2 rivulets that are running through that area. So you're talking about an island that already floods, and the more development from upstream or in the area that is exactly exacerbating that problem is going to cause flooding in people's houses. So it's not, and you're right, the plan is to modulate, make sure that you can make the adjustments, but when the rubber meets the road and it comes down, this is what the responsibility is for the whole planning board. Because when the rubber meets the road, we're the ones getting flooded. So when we talk about we're excited, we don't know who to talk to, we're looking for somebody to, we're looking at everybody here as a protection factor, and some of that still applies to you, because at the end of the day, it's not business. If that floods, who's going to be the people that answer to that? Is it going to be the people here on the board? Is it going to be the company? That's the things that I'm trying to point out as to where some of the people are affected by this, why everybody seems upset, and they're confused, because we don't know where to go. In a situation like that, if that gets developed, it is going to impact, because your water runoff is going to be through there. That's the middle island between 2 stream rivulets. So it's just, I want to make sure that as these plans come forward and are presented to you, it's a cumulative effect as to what each piece is going to impact, because we're the only ones that pay the price. But thank you, everybody.
Okay, thank you.
For your time.
Can you respond to that?
Yeah. Can you respond to that in some way, like to his point? Like to give a level of comfort in some way?
So we're talking about I go back to talking about the rate and our discharge points and then where we have to analyze to. So our discharge point for study point 1 is the 60-inch pipe or culvert that goes underneath Millstone River Road. So we can't increase the rate of rainfall or the flow going through that culvert any more than it currently sees, and that's where the rate reductions come in. We even have to reduce it. So a stream, a drainage feature, a pipe, they're all evaluated based off capacity, which is a rate. So since we're reducing the rate to what it can handle currently or below what it can handle currently, it should alleviate any potential impacts from drainage, runoff, flooding at that location. So that's how the regulations are set up, all based off the rate, what the feature can handle, reducing the rate below what the feature can handle in its current condition so that you don't have these impacts once the project's developed.
So you're saying even though you're going to be adding to the impervious surfaces in that area, you still have to maintain the current flow?
We have to go even below the current flow.
Okay.
So that's how the guidelines and the regulations are set up. Those are those percentages I was talking about, reducing for each of those storm events earlier.
And then when we apply for the flood hazard permit, they look further down the corridor, correct?
Right, and as Mr. Hoff mentioned, since this is contributory to the Millstone River and the tributary connects, we also have to look at the flood hazard area, which is what happens during the 100-year storm, to the Millstone River tributary all the way through the property. And the DEP has to look at that and confirm that we're not impacting or enlarging the flood hazard area or increasing what areas flood. Obviously, that would not be a good condition, and the DEP wouldn't approve that. So that's another level of review and critique of what we're doing from a design standpoint for stormwater management and flood hazard.
And in the flood hazard analysis, DEP has stormwater jurisdiction, so it's not as if they look at it in isolation. They look at our stormwater plan on site to see how it affects downstream.
Right. We're actually going to have 3 levels of stormwater review for this application based off its location. We're going to have your local town review. We're going to have the DEP review for flood hazard area and stormwater management, since we have disruption to the environmental constraints on the site. And the Delaware Environmental Council Commission also does the stormwater review itself. So we're going to have 3 separate agencies all reviewing this for the applicability to the current stormwater regulations and impacts, as were mentioned here from the residents.
All right, great. Thank you very much.
Maria Janusik, 720 East Frank Avenue, Manville, New Jersey. Attorney Mr. Hoff made a statement that the study point 3, which flows through the Claremont development, is going to be diverted, I believe, to study point 1?
No.
To where? Where is it diverted to?
The whole study point isn't diverted. A portion of the drainage area that drains to study point 3 is being captured and diverted towards study point 1. Not
Is being what? Captured?
captured and discharged and directed towards study point 1.
Okay. And so it says, with the documents that are included with this application, there is that letter dated December 1, 2021 to Carl Sirachi, Chairman, subject Toll Brothers, and file 21 PB10 MSSP. And so it says here in regard to that study point 3, which flows through the Claremont district, reducing the volume to the Claremont development will increase the volume to the Millstone River, which will increase flooding of the homes on Millstone River Road and downstream in Manville. As a Manville resident and a Hillsborough property owner, what are you doing here? What's being done here? You know, so you're going to divert flooding. You're going to divert flooding. What are you referencing?
The Environmental Commission.
Is this a letter or is it a study?
And it's going to be brought up, I think someone said it's going to be brought up. It's the Hillsborough Township Environmental Commission. It's a letter to Carl Sirachi, Chairman, Hillsborough Township Planning Board, date December 1, 2021, subject Toll Brothers, Inc., RBG Enclave, file 21 PB-10 S/MS/SP, block 183, lot 38.101, block, and this is an error, block 483.01, lot 1201 Hamilton Road. This is the letter to Chairman Carl Sirachi, and it is from...
No, it's from the Environmental Commission. Do you want to address the contents of that now?
It's from Deborah A. Boyer,
Yep.
Chairperson, Hillsborough Township.
We know what's coming. They're going to...
And so...
You would like them to address that comment.
And so this is stating that by diverting the flooding...
Ms. Janusik, can you let them have an opportunity to... We know. You want them to comment on that statement,
Okay, well, because the attorney, Mr. Hoff, was not sure what I was referring to,
Right,
where I
we
was
got
getting
it.
my information.
Yes, we are aware of that comment in the review letter. We do not agree with the conclusion for the reasons that Mr. Cruz has gone over a number of times. We don't believe that it will increase flooding of the homes on Millstone River Road and downstream in Vanville, because as Mr. Cruz has testified, we reduce the rate of flow at that study point. So while, again, there is a diversion from one portion of the site to the other, the rate of flow remains reduced from its current condition.
How is that rate being reduced?
As I mentioned earlier, the multiple large-scale stormwater BMPs, the wet ponds, as we were discussing, that's how we provide the rate reduction. It has the volume to hold and retain the stormwater for a period of time, release it at a slower rate, so it minimizes the impact downstream, and that's why we agree that there will be caused flooding. The stormwater management design is set up to minimize any flooding impacts downstream. That's our whole basis of design and goal of design.
Okay, well, I think someone on the dais had mentioned that this letter is going to be discussed at this meeting. So it says here that a minor subdivision to subdivide the two above noted lots into 3 lots, and that's proposed block 183.01 lot 2, which allows the proposed development to be its own lot. So block 183.01 lot 2 would require a letter of interpretation to go to the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection to show exactly what is on that lot.
Okay, Mr. Cruz, are you in it? Okay. No, because you're just going around. You basically are asking him, is that true or not? What is, please answer.
If I understand your question is, the DEP letter of interpretation, how does it apply to this project? And this overall golf course property, which is a composite of those 2 lots that you mentioned earlier, has a letter of interpretation for the entire golf course property, which establishes the limits of wetlands, wetland buffers on the site. So the portion that is proposing to develop is in that overall property, so that letter of interpretation that currently exists for the golf course would apply to that proposed lot.
So the letter of interpretation for these 2 properties, block 183 lot 38.01 and block 183.01 lot 1, this was sent currently, or those are the letters of interpretation that were sent when this golf course was approved?
The letter of interpretation was completed recently and approved in March of this past year, 2021. So that was done for the entire golf course property in its current condition. And that's valid for 5 years from that date.
Okay. So it says that there are numerous environmentally sensitive areas of the site: wetlands, wetland buffers, a stream and its associated corridors, and that the applicant noted 3.3 acres of disturbance will occur in environmentally sensitive areas. So what portion of these 2 lots are all of this environmentally sensitive area? How much of that is on this portion that's going to be the new lot?
Well, the 3.3 acres you reference is the township stream corridor. That's the disturbance in the township stream corridor, and that's all inclusive of the lot for total development. We're not disturbing any areas outside of what Toll would ultimately propose their development on. So that's the stream corridor disturbance for the township.
The stream corridor that what?
For the township stream corridor. Township has their own stream corridor regulations. So that 3.3 acres of disturbance is to the township stream corridor.
Okay. So, but there are other sensitive areas that would be under the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection in regard to freshwater wetlands and flood hazard area control and all that.
There are, yes, there are requirements, and we've made application to the DEP to have all our environmental disturbances approved under their current guidelines and regulations.
So is there something that's showing specifically what is on the proposed block 183.01 lot 2?
Yes, our plans are for that lot, so any of the disturbances that are included in our site plans and design plans include all the disturbances that we would apply to the DEP for approval.
Do you have that separately somewhere? Are you showing that somewhere separately?
No, I don't have that separately. It's in the design plans.
So then we don't know what specifically environmentally sensitive things there are on this specific lot.
Yeah, I don't know what "we" stands for, but the board and the professionals and the Environmental Commission all reviewed the documents and know exactly what's going on. We were at the Environmental Commission and went through extensive testimony explaining what was being disturbed, what area is being disturbed for the road crossings. I went through a testimony the last time I was here explaining all the environmental constraints and where we're disturbing them. So there's been discussion multiple times on the environmental disturbance and where those areas are on this project. I can go through it all again. I don't know if the board wants to hear it.
So who has applied to the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection for permits for this project?
The applicant for this application has applied to the DEP.
Who has? Toll Brothers,
yes,
has-
correct.
has submitted the application? Okay, it says here the site will include 25 stormwater management systems. These will consist of 21 bioretention basins, rain gardens, and 4 wet ponds. What are, so there's 21 bioretention basins, rain gardens. What does a rain garden do?
The rain garden is intended to provide water quality to satisfy the DEP regulations for water quality.
I'm sorry, what?
Water quality. Their rain gardens are designed to provide water quality for stormwater that discharges from the site.
So what exactly, the water goes, what kind of, what's included in a rain garden?
So we're governed by regulations for water quality, just like rate reduction. We have to meet 80% total suspended solids removal. The DEP is concerned about the amount of sediment and solids that are in stormwater runoff from motor vehicle surfaces or impervious surfaces. They've set a standard that says you have to provide 80% removal of those total suspended solids in your post-developed discharge from your site. And they've applied certain percentages that each BMP provides. So a rain garden provides 80% removal, so our rain gardens spaced throughout the site are capturing runoff from motor vehicle surfaces, the impervious surfaces, they're treating it and providing the 80% removal that the DEP requires before it's discharged downstream into the drainage feature or into the Millstone River.
And so all this also goes into the groundwater?
They're not designed to infiltrate. We went through a discussion the last time as well, is that the soils out here are very clay and silty and don't promote infiltration in their current condition, underlain by bedrock as well and shale. So in this instance, we're proposing no infiltration for the site because the current site isn't appropriate for infiltration as well. It doesn't generate much infiltration. So we have to convince the DEP and the DRC as well that our design for recharge infiltration is adequate.
And you said this also filters the water?
For rain gardens, filter the water. That's how they provide water quality.
Okay, so because it doesn't infiltrate because of this, the type of soil or clay or whatever, where does this water go?
It infiltrates through the soil medium within the rain garden, the first couple feet below the bottom of the rain garden. It's captured by an underdrain. It's a perforated pipe, and then it is discharged into the overall stormwater collection system. It is then transferred into the stormwater management basins, where it actually gets additional treatment that we can't take credit for, and then ultimately it's discharged to the study points that I referenced earlier.
Okay, as far as you just said, the additional treatment, what does that entail? Who does that?
I can get into so the DEP in their current regulations that changed on March 2nd, 2021, required water quality to be provided in small-scale BMPs. There's 21 areas that we're referencing.
The rain gardens.
The rain gardens. That's what a rain garden is, a small-scale BMP. They said now, instead of using large basins that you're used to accustomed seeing, 1 or 2 of these large basins in a project, you have to now provide water quality in smaller BMPs, rain gardens spaced throughout the area. They can only have a drainage area of roughly 2.5 acres maximum. So that's why you see that we have 21 of these spaced throughout to comply with those regulations. And we can only take credit for water quality from those features. The larger scale BMPs still provide water quality based off the basis of what the DEP had in their previous regulations, but they don't recognize that anymore. So we're actually designing the wet ponds, which under a wet pond regulation in their previous regs would give you 60 to potentially 80% TSS removal. We can't take credit for that. So we're providing 80% in the rain gardens. It's going to wet pond. It's still getting water quality that we can't take credit for based off the DEP regulations, but it's still getting additional water quality. We just can't take credit for it before it goes downstream.
Okay, so how many of these bioretention basins are going to be on this currently proposed block 183.011? How many of these bioretention?
All the stormwater management features are on the lot. Lot 2, that lot 2 you're
So
referencing.
none of these are going to be on the golf course? This is all on that residential lot?
That's correct.
Okay, and 4 wet ponds, where are they going to be?
For wet ponds are on the lot as well. Then we referenced they're closer towards the tributary. There are these three darker greenish areas along the main entrance road. And then there's one remote closer to the cul-de-sac to the northwest.
Okay, so the golf course won't be having any kind of stormwater management done. The property that is now currently a golf course, those properties, nothing's going to be done as far as stormwater or anything in regard to mitigating flooding or anything. It's going to be done on those properties?
We're not proposing any modifications to the golf course. If they're going to propose something, then that may be a separate application, but we're not doing anything outside of the area that TOL is controlled for development.
So what you're doing is strictly for the proposed residential tract? Correct. In this letter that I'm referring to Carl Sirachi, Chairman, it says here, some of the stormwater basins will be in the stream corridor. The applicant noted 3.3 acres of disturbance will be in the township stream corridor, with a proposal to have 5.5 acres within the stream corridor to go back to its natural state. What is that referring to, going back to its natural state?
So, as we have an active golf course, there are areas of the township stream corridor that are currently an active golf course. They're manicured lawn, tees, greens, sand, pits, the like, just in normal operation. Those are currently exist within the township stream corridor. So as we develop, we're staying outside the township stream corridor. Those areas that are active golf that are now going to be part of the development are going to revert back to natural conditions. So you're going to take manicured lawn, sand pits, and greens, you're going to grade them out and let it revert back to a natural state, which would be a meadow grass, potentially wooded area after the years, instead of being a manicured golf course.
Okay, and saying here that changing of site from golf to residential requires sampling for pesticides for home locations. Prior to the golf course, the area was farmed from pre-1931. The golf course was developed in the late 1990s. The DRCC report not addressed yet. The applicant noted they are waiting for all comments and before addressing comments and or revising the plans. So has there anything been done in regard to the sampling for pesticides?
The pesticide testing's been done and completed. So that is taken care of, and that information can be provided.
Okay. Let's see. And these are questions that were questions and comments from the Environmental Commission relative to the proposed development. Who is responsible for monitoring and reporting the tract's impervious coverage relative to compliance with the 45% limit?
Go ahead. Mr. Maskey, this will cover the environmental review letter, I suppose?
Yeah.
Okay. So the 45%, as discussed earlier when we were talking architecture, is an overall percentage for the entire new lot that's being created. It's not per individual lot for a home. So right now we have 24% that's proposed. That includes roads, sidewalks, and the proposed homes, the footprints, the largest footprint with additional options. So there is no logical expanse where it can go past the 45% because it's regulated under the zoning ordinance, and even doubling the size of the house on each lot wouldn't put you over the 45% threshold.
And let's see. There's a 60-inch stormwater pipe that's mentioned in this letter, and so one of the questions is, does the 60-inch stormwater pipe have adequate capacity to handle the additional runoff? The commission requests an analysis be conducted to assess the ability to handle the additional runoff without causing flooding. And this letter is dated December 1, 2021. So have you had time?
If you don't mind, we're just going to go down 1 through 7 so that we don't leave any unturned in that letter. So we'd like to address number 2 in that letter.
Right. So
number 2.
Yeah, further up the page.
Commission impact to the township stream corridor be minimized?
Sure.
Yeah, just for the board's edification, the letter that's being referenced, the commission, this was the letter that Mr. Julian referenced earlier, they summarized their report with these 7 questions. So I believe the applicant is proposing to address them one by one and get through all 7 questions.
Yeah. We've done 1. That was the issue of the total impervious coverage. Second dealt with impact to the township stream corridor be minimized if that's possible. Please provide a technical justification.
Right.
Mr. Cruz, I think we covered this in terms of our flood hazard responsibilities, but if you could answer that question directly.
Sure. So again, as I mentioned earlier, some of the stream corridor impacts are unavoidable for the road crossings. I talked that in testimony at last time. So that's why we're asking for a 3.3 acres of disturbance for those areas. There are a couple stormwater BMPs that are located in the township stream corridor that we discussed with the Environmental Commission that we could relocate out to reduce that 3.3 acres number down. The benefit also of this development past that is, as I mentioned earlier, the areas that are actively golfed or maintained for the golf operations are now going to revert back to natural. So you're going to have a decrease of 3.3 acres for the environmental crossings for the roads and the areas that we can't avoid, unfortunately. But you're going to gain 5.3 acres back in areas that are going to be allowed to revert to a natural condition. So you're getting a benefit of 1.5 to 1.
Is that going to be in one specific place where you're going to have that, or is that going to be you having little here, little there, little there, which you're combining as the 5.5?
It's spaced out in different areas. The main area is along the tributary. Obviously, that's the biggest environmental constraints follow that tributary. That's where the bulk of the area will be, but there'll be other minor areas spaced further out, adjacent to wetlands.
And Mr. Cruz, number 3 dealt with the protocols for pesticides. I think you indicated earlier the pesticide testing was done in accordance with those protocols.
Correct.
And phase 2, I think that we could provide to the Environmental Commission and the board as well.
Yes.
So, excuse me, is there a written report in regard to these pesticides?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Number 4 was address the discrepancies noted above relative to the stormwater management of the proposed development. This comment arose from, I believe, one of the commissioners unable to read one of the schedules within the manual. We talked about that in the first meeting.
Yes.
There weren't any discrepancies in the stormwater calculations. It was just a misunderstanding as to what portions of the manual were referenced. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And as we indicated.
That was, excuse me to interrupt, but I think that was that table 1, right?
It was the table that was a table 1, but you need to be referencing the breakdown in Appendix G. There's a large table in Appendix G, and there was the confusion was the overall numbers are presented in the summary in the text. The detailed backup of how you meet all the reductions was in Appendix G, and that was the disconnect.
But, so Dr. Abrupka originally looked at Table 1, but he didn't look at the appendix?
Appendix G, yes.
Right, okay.
And that, he wasn't able to read it. It was on the 8.5 by 11. Unfortunately, it should be larger, but we tried to explain that that's where all the breakdown was, of demonstrating that we meet all the rate reductions per the DEP requirements.
I do remember talking about that in December, but I just wanted to clarify it again.
Sure. Sure.
So during the Environmental Commission meeting, it was Dr. Abrupta who had stated that there was a discrepancy?
Yes.
He did indicate that he didn't, the way he was reading it, he didn't understand the rate reduction calculations that were performed.
And he said that at the meeting?
Mhm.
He didn't understand?
Correct.
Okay.
5 deals with does the 60-inch stormwater pipe have adequate capacity to handle the additional runoff? The commission requests an analysis to be conducted to assess the ability to handle the additional runoff without causing flooding. Does that relate back to your testimony as to the study we'll need to do of that pipe, as well as the downstream study that we'll have to do that you mentioned with respect to the flood hazard and DRCC?
Yes, and that study has been completed. That is a key part of the flood hazard area analysis and report that has to be submitted to the DEP for the applicable permits.
All right.
Excuse me, so this analysis was done?
Mhm.
This analysis is available, is that part of the application? That's at the planning board office?
That is an application that's made to the DEP, and the clerk gets a copy of the application documents for any submission to the DEP, the township clerk.
Hillsborough's municipal clerk?
Yes.
Will have a copy of this analysis?
Should, yes.
Correct.
That was in the northeast corridor, that one, that pipe, right?
That was up in
That's study point 1.
one.
That's essentially, that's study point 1, the 60-inch culvert crossing under Millstone River Road.
Number 6, can the roof drains be diverted to the grass areas instead of the stormwater management systems to allow for groundwater recharge and less water to the stormwater management systems?
We would prefer to do that. In this instance, though, as I mentioned earlier, the soil is very clay and silty at top, so that leads to infiltration problems, and these lots are next to each other. We don't want to cause ponding and side yard swales and maintenance issues down the line. So We propose not to have them surface discharge and be connected into the stormwater system.
And the final one was to...
I'm sorry. Okay, so these roof drains won't be diverted to the grass area. The drains, roof drains are going into the stormwater management system.
Correct.
Okay, so that's how many homes are going to be there? Hundreds?
174.
Okay, that are going to be going into the stormwater management system, okay.
And the seventh was to respond to the DRCC report and provide updated plans as necessary. Please provide a copy of the response to the commission.
And we'll do that as we correspond with the DRCC.
So that's something that needs to be done, responding to the Delaware and Maritime Canal Commission.
Correct.
Update and provide updated plans as necessary, okay. What is the largest lot size in this residential development?
So the largest lot is approximately 31,000 square feet for one of the 90 wide that the architect mentioned earlier, so 31,000 square feet.
31,000 square feet?
Yes.
What does that break down like in terms of like an acre?
It's a little, an acre is 43,000 roughly, 43,000 square feet, so it's probably 3/4 of an acre.
3/4 of an acre for
Yeah.
the largest,
Right.
largest model. And what's the smallest lot?
Smallest lot would be the 55 product, and that's the typical lot size there. Smallest is 7,150 square feet, where the ordinance requirement is 6,000 square feet. So we're above the ordinance requirement, but 7,150 square feet.
And in terms of an acre, what is that?
I'll calculate that for you. Sorry. 0.16, 16%.
16% of an acre?
It's 0.16 of an acre.
0.16
of an acre.
Of an acre.
So like an eighth of an acre.
And so you're saying that the smallest size lot is a little bit bigger than than the requirement of the ordinance?
Yes, ordinance requires 6,000 square feet minimum lots.
Okay.
The smallest that we're proposing for the 55 is 7,150 square feet.
So how many of the largest size lots will there be? And that was what, like 3/4 of an acre, you said. How many of those will there be?
I don't have the exact breakdown off the top of my head. Right. So we have about 30 individual homes that are large lot on the pirate. I'm saying, yeah, and then yes, you have probably another 20, 50.
Plus or minus.
And then you have more as you go up through the cul-de-sac, so you have probably another 30. So you roughly have about 80 of the large lots.
80 of the 3/4 size?
No, 80 of the 90-foot, the larger product.
80 of the large houses, and each of those is going to be on a roughly 3/4 of an acre?
No. The largest lot that is on this project for the 90-foot is 31,000 square feet. The average lot size, because they all vary differently for the actual 90-foot wide product, is the average is roughly 11,800 square feet.
Average, all right. And how many are there of the smallest size lot?
Well, are you still talking about the smallest lot of the 11,800, or are you talking about the smaller product, the 55-foot product? Because there's two differences there.
I don't know what product you're putting on, but you're allowed, you said the ordinance, in regard to the ordinance, there's a certain size lot requirement, and you're providing a little bit bigger than what's required.
Yeah.
So how many of those little bit bigger lots are there?
Well, it'd be the 174 minus the 80, so you talk about 90, roughly about 90 to 94.
So 90 houses that are on the smallest required lot.
None are on the smallest required lots, but you have
Well,
90
because
homes that are on approximately 7,000 square foot
You've
lots.
added a little bit more than
Correct.
than the required, okay.
Correct.
All right, so now this is this development is coming into effect because it's satisfying the affordable housing requirements for Hillsborough Township. Where on the site will there be the affordable housing houses?
There are no affordable housing units proposed within the project. We owe a payment in lieu of the construction of such units as a requirement of this settlement agreement.
So there's no affordable housing in this development?
No, the funds generated from this project will be used to other affordable housing mechanisms in the township's affordable housing fair share plan.
Will Toll Brothers be constructing anything that's going to be affordable housing?
No.
Okay. So this ordinance was based on the fact that Hillsborough Township was going to have affordable housing number towards their requirement. So how did this project get its ordinance and permission for this application?
Question for the witness. That's not a question
Okay.
for the witness.
Okay, all right, so there's no affordable housing on this site. Okay, then this will be for after the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Doug Eden, 55 Ann Street, Hillsborough, New Jersey. I have an amendment here. I think it's actually the adopted amendment to the Upper Raritan Water Quality Management Plan from January 2016. The Toll Brothers, did you guys actually apply for the wastewater management on that property, or was it Billy Casper Golf?
It wasn't Toll Brothers. It was done before our involvement.
When was your most recent, when was it done?
I don't have the data when the wastewater management plan was amended or adopted. It was done before we got involved in the project.
It was?
Yes.
Okay, because in this amendment that I have, it says, nonetheless, the adoption of this amendment should not be construed as a position or endorsement of any future development within the Roycebrook Golf Course property. So this was actually, this application was when it was light industrial, commercial zoning. I think, what is it, CDO5 or something in that effect. So since you were approved in that nature, would you have to reapply? It sounds to me like there would need to have another application.
No. Once you're in the sewer service area, it's an area designated for public sewer service, and then the question of what can be served is an issue of capacity at the treatment center that it's directed to.
But the application was actually for, wasn't for residential, it was actually for, it was zoned, a whole different zoning at the time.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't.
Unfortunately, it doesn't matter. Trust me, I've gone down this path when I was on the committee. You would think logic would dictate, but that's not the way state statute.
But it actually says right here in the application
It
that
doesn't.
nonetheless, any future
Trust me,
application-
I've raised this question many years ago. I would take it up with our assemblyman and assemblywoman and state senator for changing that statute and that process.
I know.
You could put in whatever you want in there. Once you're in, and it doesn't matter whether or not you actually built or construct. What you stayed in there was your intention at the time. Once you're in, you're in.
Okay,
And
I just believe what I
Trust me,
read, and it
I went
pretty much says right here, but
I
that's
went
not-
down this path many years ago.
All right. I know it's getting late, and I don't want
No worries.
to keep you here. I understand.
We got
what
till
you're saying.
10:30.
But the last time we were here, we looked at a couple of things, and Tom O'Donnell wasn't able to make it tonight, so I told him I'd bring this up. The retention pond on Hamilton Road, you stated that it's like, I think it's by Area 1, is that the Pirate Patch area?
Yes, the study point 3, which is the area that drains into the Claremont development, along Hamilton, the old Hamilton Road before they did the bypass, there's a stormwater management basin that was constructed. as part of
Right.
that. Right.
You said that water actually goes from there, it drains out to the Millstone River on the last time we were here?
Well, ultimately, everything in this general area drains into the Millstone River, but that stormwater basin that was constructed for the bypass, that discharges into the wetland complex that's immediately to the north on the golf course, which that ties into the drainage feature that runs through the wetlands between the homes in Claremont and then continues through the Claremont down to the Millstone.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that because we thought you said it was going to
Directly to Millstone?
across Hamilton and going that way.
No, it's going into Claremont, as is 38 acres on the other side of Hamilton Road.
Okay.
Gets tied into the Hamilton Avenue drainage, goes into that drainage system basin in the wetlands and through
And
Claremont.
through Claremont,
Yeah.
okay, and it does. The other area is not directly on your property. I brought it up last meeting. It's off Sunnymead Road where it floods. It's a stream that comes across. You showed it, the stream comes and it kind of hooks and shoots towards Hamilton Road. That water is water that runs and it runs through wetlands to the stream that you showed running, I guess, on the east side of the property that runs across the Millstone River Road. That is the same, that water runs through there. And if you can see, you have a few dots on there that show some wetlands, and then you got your bridges that go across. That water runs, that's the way that water flows. It runs right through the middle of your property. Because it just doesn't run to nowhere and stop. That's basically what you're saying.
Well, based off the topography, the area between these two wetlands,
Right.
this hatch area, this is a high elevation, and the topography doesn't show that that connection occurs between this wetland complex and the wetland complex that's adjacent to the tributary. So I'm not exactly certain where this wetland area drains to, but it does go from the western portion of Sunnymead down and through towards the southern portion, towards Hamilton Road. But our topography that we have that's current does not show that connecting into the tributary that runs towards Millstone River Road.
Okay. I know that property, and I could assure you that volume of water doesn't just end right by the maintenance house or whatever that is and stop, because everybody here knows the amount of water that floods Sunnymead Road is going, it goes down into that stream and down towards the Millstone River. You could look into that. But I got one last question. I think on Falcon Road, when they did the project on Falcon Road, there was an off-site, from what I understand, tell me if I'm wrong, there was an off-site contribution to redo the bridge in that area from the builder. So with that, I'm just going to ask, would you consider, with the issues that we do have in our area, for an off-site contribution to dredge and maybe look at resizing the pipes that are going through under Millstone River Road, going down into where Tim was talking about, to alleviate some of our problems. I mean, I think that would satisfy some of the people, because most of our concerns are the people that live on that pond or stream, where foundations caved in and things like that, when we had a lot of water in our area.
We're not in a position to just offer to do additional off-site improvements. As we indicated, our off-site impacts are going to be addressed through the permitting process. And I'm not exactly sure exactly where you're referring to, but we've indicated that that's an area that we're going to need to study as part of our permit process. If it's in that area, and beyond that, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure of the area. Are you talking about the 60-inch culvert that currently goes under the Millstone?
I am, and
Okay.
yeah. No, I'm actually talking about the one that goes south on that property, come up, go south, show the Claremont area where the
Right.
water.
Down, the Claremont's down, and
Keep going down, I guess, show your little pirate thing, and then keep coming to where you had the retention pond on Hamilton Road.
right.
All right, the water that actually, you're not even familiar with the stream and the ponds where we have our problems, because that's what I'm talking about.
Right,
The water
but-
actually comes under the pipe, off that wetland property, goes through a pipe, through Tom O'Donnell's property, and goes across the street to the larger pond,
Right.
runs down that stream, and then it bottlenecks at Millstone River Road because the pipe is too small. And probably that whole area needs to be re-dredged because of the silt and the amount of water that it holds. But that's where most of our problems were during Ida, and they continue to be.
And the pipe is
On Millstone River Road, goes
is
right
it
there.
in this area?
Mhm. Right by Tim's house.
Well,
So it gets 15 feet of water.
Well, and let me just, again, express what we talked about. The area that is draining from the golf course to that whole system that you've described is being reduced when this development. We're diverting 12 acres of surface area that contributes to that whole system away, and now taking it and moving it from that discharge point and diverting it to the 60-inch culvert and then through the channel directly to the Millstone River. So we're taking rate and volume away from that contributory drainage area. So we're not increasing the rate, we're reducing the volume, as Dr. Abrupta had said in the Environmental Commission meeting as well. So we're minimizing any impacts to that overall drainage system that runs through the rear yards, into the larger basin, into the smaller basin, and through that pipe. So that's how we're trying to minimize any impacts to the adjacent development.
So that's where I'm concerned, because you're showing your rain gardens being the small green areas.
Mhm.
That volume of water in that little bit of area that you're going to hold back for 24 hours before you release it, and you're showing that area as being higher, where it'd be able to run going north. It's not a fact. That property runs from about where the tip of that, where you're showing there,
Mhm.
and where that rain garden is. All the water that runs from there runs directly back towards that wetland area. That's the reason why it's a wetland area, because that's where all the water goes. So, what you're telling me doesn't add up, and I just see us having a problem down the road. Also, I just wanted to state that I just asked that question. If you guys consider it, you can maybe bring it forward to Toll Brothers. At this point, they don't want to commit to that. I understand. The rain gardens, you say in 24 hours, you hold the water back 24 hours. Our river crests usually 24 to 48 hours after a storm. So even holding that water back and trickling it out into a later date, it's not going to really make a difference. Most of the floods, the river crests at a later date. It's just going to add to the problem. But basically, in my opinion, adding any more water for any project is irresponsible, in my opinion, to a problem that we already have in that area, is the flooding. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Did you say your assessment was that you're actually changing the grade of that area to divert the water away? You're not using the existing grade, correct?
Correct.
So you're taking what's there now and diverting it away from the property?
Right.
Okay.
We're regrading that
So
entire
they're not
area.
using the existing grade that's currently now?
Good evening, Chairman. Is this on?
Yeah.
Yeah, just gotta-
Raise it up or you got it lower?
Yeah,
Good
sure.
evening, Chairman, board members. I have a question on...
Name
Oh,
and
I'm
address.
sorry. Mayor Richard Onderko, 325 North Main, Manville. I have a question for the stormwater expert here. On that chart, how much of the water is being diverted to the Royce Brook?
How much of the water? So the Royce Brook contributor area, I believe, has a small area. This wetland complex eventually ends up into the northern portion of the Royce Brook. So again, that area is very small. It's roughly 9 acres. So it's not diverting a significant amount of water compared to the overall 291 acres that goes to the tributary, that goes to the millstone. And obviously, again, we have to meet rate reductions for that area as well.
So I'm a little confused on all the talk about the rain leaders coming off the roofs. Where does that go in this diagram? Like, where does the water get piped? It's not going to be, it's going to be underground?
The stormwater collection system can consist of pipes in the roadway and pipes at the rear of the yards, so that we're capturing any flow before it goes off-site. So the roof drain collector system will be tied into available yard drains at the rear of the property or the stormwater system within the roadway, and that whole system then gets connected into the stormwater management facilities, the BMPs, small scale and large scale, gets controlled and then released at that slower rate to the tributary before it gets to the millstone. So all the roof collection, even whether it's surface flow or whether it's piped, is all going to the same location, to the stormwater control system and the stormwater piping. It's being controlled before it is discharged downstream.
So do you have a volume calculation or a rate calculation into the Royce Brook?
For this area, for the area up to the north, we only have to analyze our direct point of discharge at this property boundary. And we have to meet those rate reductions. I can read from the table, G, if that helps, and just give you the rates at that study point. So take my glasses off. So for that study point, which is study point 2, the allowable peak flow rates for the 2-year storm are 4.4 cubic feet per second. That's after applying all the reductions that were necessary for the DEP. We're discharging 4.36 CFS, so we're below. For the 10-year storm, it's 11.14 CFS. That's allowable. We're 11.12. And then for the 100-year storm, the allowable is 24.53 cubic feet per second, sorry, CFS, and we're proposing 24.17. And that, again, the allowable includes all the reductions that are required for the DEP regulations.
I'm curious to know, in the design of the project, will all these homes have sump pumps?
We don't make that determination until we do actual on-lot exploratory programs for the basements to see if there's seasonal high water table. Usually, we're required by code to maintain a separation from seasonal high groundwater table to the basement bottom. So we would try to avoid sump pumps, but there may be some instances where it's close where we have to do it for safety measures.
Mr. Cruz, right? Mm-hmm. I've lived here my whole life. You know, I've seen a lot of change with flooding. And 1971, 1999, 2011, 2021, all major storms, 500-year storms. So my question is to you is, what happens if these retention ponds are full and we get hit with 8 inches of rain in 12 hours? What happens to those homes? Do you guarantee that they're not going to flood out? It's a hypothetical. I don't understand how the stormwater management system will handle if it's full and you get 8 inches of rain. What happens? I think it's a valid question.
So if the ponds happen to be full, which would be full because of a 100-year storm, that's the largest storm design event, then there would have to be, like you're saying, an additional storm above that. Then there are emergency grates and emergency spillways that divert and direct the flow towards the tributary, towards the downstream location of where the water is going in the current condition. So it all is going to the same space, same location.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, Tim Baracco. Just a couple follow-ups, please, from the earlier discussion. Let me start with this. We use the word current to talk about current conditions that you model. I think we established it's really 1999. Agreed? And
I'm not.
And if it is, no. Table, what do you call it? Atlas 14 is 1999.
Sir, Mr. Hoff.
Well, the question is, why don't we call it what it is? Why are we calling it current if it's really 1999?
Sir, because it is the current regulation table created by the same people you don't want to hear about.
I got it. It's nonsense. Okay. Next question, and it's kind of a tag along to what we were just hearing now. How well does this whole stormwater system that you're building handle flash flooding? Because flash flooding is getting much more prominent, much more, built up worse and worse, as opposed to like a 24-hour math that you're doing. My question is, if you get the concentrated 24 hours worth of rain in 3 hours, can your system handle that, or is that going to become overflow capacity that comes, extra into our neighborhoods?
We aren't required to model any flash floods because there's no storm events that are set up in the regulatory body to provide a standard for us to model. So we're only required to model the 24-hour storm duration for the rainfall amounts that are set in the code. There's no code that says this is a flash flood, this is what equates to a flash flood. So we have no basis to model a flash flood. Sorry for paraphrasing.
All right, that's just like you tell us you have no current data for storms either, and you do, so it's crazy. Last question. Your modeling, does it provide anything for future increases, climate change, increases in intensity of the amount of rain coming down, or are you assuming the rain stays static to 1999?
I'm assuming the rain stays static to the current regulation.
To 1999. It's idiocy stuff. Sorry.
run up before someone beats you.
I just can answer a quick question. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Chairman. Real quick, as a result of this property...
Sorry, name and for the right,
Prince,
because...
Apologize,
yes,
87 Emerald Road, Millstone. As a result of this development, and I know this is a planning, not a zoning discussion per se, does it require any zoning changes
No.
at all? Okay. So that everything here meets the current zoning standards of the town?
That's correct.
Okay.
Susan Gullah, Fort Hunt Club Road. Mr. Maskey was explaining that the impervious coverage calculations are not done on a lot-by-lot basis in this development, but they're averaged using the impervious coverage percentages allowed on the entire tract.
Question for me or for the applicant?
I'm not sure. The allowable percentage, the 45% allowable impervious, is based off the overall total acreage of the tract. So 130 acres, this is the basis that you can use as the calculation.
Okay, then I have a question particularly regarding the north end where you have those smaller 7,000 square foot lots. Theoretically, the homeowners up there, and it wouldn't take very much, can suddenly decide to put in the usual patios, the whole thing. And a whole row of them could do that. They could theoretically go to 100%. Is there anything the homeowners association will at some point dig in their heels and say no?
Well, I'm assuming they meant 100%, like 100% impervious number.
Like they just pave their yard, basically.
And I mentioned earlier, the current calculation with large footprints, options, and additions that we've calculated is 24%. You'd have to increase the size of the home on each lot double, which isn't directly practical or possible, to even approach the 45% number. So adding patios or adding any impervious past that isn't going to put you into a condition where you're violating the 45% overall impervious coverage.
Okay, if an entire, again, using that north end where you have that entire line of smaller lots, if a lot of them increase their impervious coverage, because those are the smaller lots, so it doesn't take much for your percentage to increase, would that make any change in your impervious calculations if one area goes up a lot more than another area?
No, the impervious calculation is for the overall lot, so it doesn't matter where it occurs.
So it would cause a problem in the north end, for example, if all the homeowners up there put in patios, gazebos, all the things that people want to put in their yards.
All right, maybe this might be easier to
one
answer.
spot.
You engineered this for 45% impervious coverage.
We engineered this for the impervious coverage, we didn't engineer it for 45%, I'm not going to, but we engineered it with an additional buffer past the 24% that's referenced to include additional additions to the buildings and future patios and decks, so that we're covered from the storm management perspective.
Up to what percentage then, impervious coverage?
We'd probably be up to, I'd say with the impervious, we covered at least 35%.
Okay, then I got a question to our engineer. How is this getting approved for 45% if it's not engineered for 45%?
It's basically, they're designing for what they're proposing as far as impervious plus a buffer. So normally it would be designed for what they're proposing. So it's not being approved at the 45% maximum as far as impervious goes.
So where's the 45 number coming from?
That was. Jerry, can you just talk into the mic when you talk? Thank you. Can you just repeat what you said?
Yeah, so the stormwater management system has been designed for the impervious that the applicant is proposing with the development, plus a buffer up to about 35%. So it is not designed for the maximum impervious coverage that's allowed in the zone of 45%, which is typical as far as development goes. That's just the way that, the impervious coverage is a limit, and so you design to what you're proposing, and you can put a factor of safety in there, and that's what the stormwater management system is designed for.
So it would allow them to design up to 45, but based on the zone.
No, I mean, if this development doubled the house sizes and even more and went up to the 45%, then it's not designed to handle that amount of impervious coverage. It's only designed, as the applicant testified, to handle up to 35% impervious for the overall site.
Can I ask you a different question, though? And Susan, I think you were, I don't know if this is where you were trying to go with it, but for a particular area, right? So the overall project may be at 30 or 35%, depending upon whatever additions go on. But if there's one particular area where maybe there's smaller lots and that percentage is above 45% because the lots are smaller, does the basin area and the stormwater management system that's in that particular subsection, can that handle that level of runoff?
Yes, and based off the drainage divide, we've factored the buffer equally across all the lots. So that's governed by the drainage area that we factored in to the overall stormwater management design. For each basin has a certain amount of impervious that's directed to it, and that includes the buffer for each of those lots. So if all one section that was draining to one of the BMPs added the additional patio and deck, it would match our maximum that we designed to that basin. If it didn't, it would just be less. So each area has a maximum impervious coverage going to it. That includes our buffer. So it doesn't matter where it occurs on site. It's a set buffer across all lots. I don't know, sorry if that answers your question or is clear.
No, that helped. Thanks.
Okay, so they could be concentrated in one area. How did you make the decision to put all the small lots at that end and the large lots at the other end? Was it to do with the topography? I guess what I'm saying is, if I'm going there, I'm buying $1 million house, I want to be at the back end away from the traffic, and instead they're up near Hamilton Road. Is there a stormwater management reason for the sizing?
No, there was no basis of grading stormwater management. It was a preference based off the layout from the planners and toll.
Okay. By the way, not a question, but install the sump pumps.
Duly noted.
What did you have to
So just to reiterate,
Sorry, name and address.
Doug Eden,
Sorry.
55 Ann Street, Hillsborough, New Jersey. Mayor, you asked about putting those houses. You asked them if they're going to be elevated.
No.
That area.
No, I asked,
They're going to
I asked if
change.
he was changing the grade of that area, and he said yes.
Changing the grade, of course, because I was saying that water runs back toward us, so you would change the grade to make the water run the opposite direction.
Correct. That's how we're taking the additional 12 acres away from that area of the Claremont development and redirecting it towards the unnamed tributary. We're regrading it and directing it away from the property line.
Okay, so you would have to you'd increase you'd have to add soil, make it higher, whatever, I guess, to be able to change the grade?
Actually, no, some of the area we're cutting down, some is filling. It's a mixture of back and forth in that area, but it's regraded so it's all directed towards the tributary. So there's some cut, there's some areas of fill, but it's all graded towards the tributary.
So my concern was you're taking more than three-story houses, and you're going to actually build them up and then put a house up on a hill is what I'm asking.
No, not necessarily. Some of the area along the rear we're actually cutting down because I think, as I may have heard Mr. O'Donnell say before, your residents, that there's like a sledding hill or a hill there. So we're cutting into that hill, and we still have enough fall to get the grade from the back towards the tributary because there's so much fall between that portion of the property and a tributary, that we can still make it work.
Yeah, well, that hill, that's just a tee-off area. That's just a small, this little
okay.
area that they built up that they use to sled. It's not a big hill. My other question is, and I don't want to be a wise guy, but what I'm asking is, so I can take the whole Claremont area and use my impervious surface based on the whole size of the Claremont area for my property? Because basically that's what they're doing.
No, you're in a different zone, and in that zone it is based on lot by lot.
I'm in a residential zone,
Yeah.
just like them.
This is a different residential zone.
What's different about it?
It allows this type of development.
So, as a taxpayer, they can utilize more impervious surface on their lot than I'm allowed to, is what you're saying.
The lot is 130 acres.
I'm talking about the individual lot of the
It's
homeowner.
based on, you're right, it's not based on a lot, an individual house lot. Right, it's not based on individual house lots. It's based on the entire 130-acre tract. It's a different way of calculating it.
If our tract is 150 acres, then there are 200 acres, why wouldn't I be able to do the same thing? And you're saying it's because of zoning.
Right.
Doesn't make sense. Why is their zoning different than my zoning, and why are they allowed to do something that I can't?
There's 45 different zones in the town, and they all have their own, this zone has been in place for many, many years. I don't know what the premise is when it was established. For instance, across the street from you is the RA zone. They have different requirements than you have. So.
But it's not residential.
Yeah, RA is residential.
Across from me. And they can do.
In the general neighborhood.
They can do what you're doing with the impervious surface?
No.
Okay. Who can?
I'd have to look at all the residential zones, but there are some other zones in the town where it was based on a full tract.
Does anybody know if there's another zone in Hillsborough that can basically base their impervious surface on the size of the tract of the neighborhood they live in?
Yeah, along Farm Road, that development there, I know there's some older planned developments, they're called, that were done on a tract basis. They weren't done on an individual building lot basis. There are several in town, yeah. They're old.
Okay, well, we have an older development?
Yeah.
Okay. So they're getting special zoning.
This kind of zoning, cluster zoning, is designed to concentrate the development to a smaller area so you don't have the impervious all over the place. So if they had spread those homes all over the acreage, your impervious would actually go up because of all the additional roads and driveways. So by clustering the homes in a smaller area reduces the overall impervious, is what the design of that kind of zone is. So your numbers are reduced by putting the homes together, but allowing the homeowner the ability to add a patio without being penalized.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So the homes actually are going to look like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Country Club Estates right across from Pike Run. They're probably 30, 35 feet. They're 10 feet apart, 5 foot to the side setback.
No, they'd be smaller than that. They're not as big as that.
Is the same setback? Are we talking about the same setback on these homes, or on say the
Again,
larger
we're
homes?
into testimony now, not questions for the witness. 'Cause
I'm just asking him. Yeah.
I don't think he would know that site.
Yeah, I don't know that site.
It's not in the town.
But you told me when I asked the architect that I needed.
No, we could tell you the front yard setbacks here,
For our development?
but we don't.
Yes.
You're referring to another
No, I'm
project.
talking about your development.
The front yard
I'm
setback's
sorry
20
if I
feet.
confused you.
20 feet,
20 feet.
20 feet per home?
yes. Front yard.
No, I'm talking about side setbacks.
So side is 6
6 feet.
each.
So 31-foot homes with 12 foot between them,
Possibly.
basically. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we are up at 10:30, and I know per our rules that this is where we have to end the meeting at this point.
Mr. Chairman, I had a question. When Mr. Cruz is still getting questioned,
Mhm.
if we stop him, what happens next meeting? Do we then revisit all the same questions over again? I'm just trying to make this as
Right.
efficient as possible.
No, I understand, but we could keep going on and on. I mean, that's why we purposely try to stop at a reasonable time.
Which I
Yeah.
appreciate, but is there
Yeah.
any, I mean, how much How many more questions are there to be asked?
Well, it's not only, more questions, but then everyone gets that last bite at the apple to give their...
Oh, no, we're not done. We have another
Yeah, yeah.
witness.
Oh, yeah, right.
I'm just
Yeah,
trying
yeah.
to close this witness
Right.
because not through no fault of
No, no,
the
no.
board, we covered a lot of ground
Right.
twice tonight that we had touched on in the first meeting, and I'm
Mhm.
just trying to avoid that in the third meeting by carrying over Mr. Cruz. So that's
Right.
all I'm not, I understand that you guys don't get paid very much for the time that you put in. I appreciate that, but what I'm trying to avoid is
Right.
a second hearing that looks a lot like.
Mr. Chairman, if you, maybe you could ask for a show of hands if anybody else that might have questions for this witness?
Could I just say something real quick?
Could I just
say something, Doug?
Can you hold on for a second, please, Doug?
Well, you guys
Well, can you just hold on for a second? We're asking a question.
down.
We're trying to give you more time if you
Sit
give
down
us a
and
second.
let
God almighty.
Counselor talk. I want to ask you, I just want to answer.
Oh, I understand. We're trying to give you more time if you just give us a second.
So is there anybody else that has a question for this witness, besides this gentleman here? Well, there's not going to be any more testimony provided by the witness.
Right. I'm gonna, okay, so by the lack of show of hands, other than one right here, this is gonna be the final question of this witness, because as you stated, we do have another testimony.
Right.
And so we will be here in another night.
Correct.
So,
Not a question. I just want to answer to his, to make a statement to Mr., I'm sorry, Mr. Hopp. You told many of us tonight, or some of us, to go back and look into certain things and, and come back with you. You told Tim to go and look into his assemblyman and different. I think we should have the opportunity to do that and come back. And if we have other questions, I think we need to have that opportunity. Why are we going to push it through?
We're not finishing tonight.
Oh, okay.
yeah, no, we're
Well,
not
that was
finishing.
my answer to, he's like,
No,
he
no, no,
said
it's
we're going to
explain
get the
to you.
same questions next meeting. and-
Of this witness.
Of this
If he
witness,
doesn't
the
wanna bring the
applicant
witness
has
back.
more witnesses,
If you
but he
give us a
doesn't want to
second.
bring his engineer back for a third time, if he can help.
Thank you for clearing that up.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Close it.
Okay. So motion to close for this
So
evening?
just double check, we have no other, we have
No
no
one-
other questions for this witness, right?
No, I didn't see any hands go up, so.
Okay. Motion, we have to close?
Yes.
Yes.
Motion to close public on this witness.
Motion
this
to close
witness.
public on this witness.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
You have other witnesses for another night, Mr. Hoff?
We have a traffic engineer to present traffic
Okay.
testimony.
So just before everyone leaves, we're going to be picking a new night, but it's going to be without, well, I...
Don't leave, don't leave.
Don't
Come
leave.
back.
We want to make
Come
sure
back.
everyone knows when we're going to continue, because most likely we're not going to be doing it,
With
well,
no-
I will be offering it without notice. But there will be one more witness, and you said it's traffic engineer.
Correct.
And then that'll probably, at the conclusion of that, everyone will have an opportunity to provide their thoughts, opinions on this application on that evening. So, Mr. Maskey, when do we have a night?
The next available night is March 3rd.
Can you do March 3rd?
The time of decision, yes, because it runs out 2/28, so we'll need an extension
We will extend.
to
through
the end of March.
Can we extend this through March 3rd, and then we can revisit it then? I just want to avoid someone leapfrogging me if I can avoid it, that's all.
You really want to...
I'm not suggesting I'm going to push anything, but if...
Can we get a time of decision to the end of March? Thank you.
Okay.
So you'll send in a piece of paper and sign it, thank you. So
Okay.
March 3rd?
All right,
Chairman?
so do I have a motion to, one, extend the time of decision till the end of March, and to extend this... What? Do we got to do it separately? Nah, okay. So let's...
A motion, Mr. Chairman, to continue this
continue to
hearing
March.
on this application to Thursday, March the 3rd at 7:30 PM, or soon thereafter, as the matter may be heard without further notice.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We got to do roll call, or, okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Wagner.
Yes.
Mr. Pease.
Yes.
Senator Armita.
Yes.
Mr. Hashtag.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Excuse me, David Delcor.
Yes.
Mayor LaPlante.
Yes.
Vice Chair Julia.
Yes.
Chair Sirachi.
Yes, so...
March 3rd, people.
What's the scheduling year?
we're going to continue the hearing on his application to March 3rd without notice, so you're not going to get, no one's going to get another.
A motion, Mr. Chairman, to extend the date, time of decision.
That's what we're going to do now. This is the time of decision when we have to, at least.
March 31st.
March 31st.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Senator Armita?
Yes.
Mr. Hashtag?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Committeeman Delcor?
Yes.
Mayor Lapine?
Yes.
Vice Chair Julian?
Yes.
Chief Ross?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
We'll see you guys in about a month.
Yep.
All right.
That place, different that time.
Okay.
We have,
So we do have a meeting. Yeah.
Get quiet.
Yeah.
Gavel.
Yeah, we have, I'm just sorry, but if everyone could take the conversations outside, we still have some minor business to take care of.
Yes, the next meeting is February 10th. We have a new application. It's a minor subdivision, ZP Builders, but we're also continuing Harvard Way that night.
Okay, so that's next week, so if anyone can't make it, please let the,
Which was actually?
February 10th.
What's next?
February 10th.
Continuation Harvard Way.
Continuation of Harvard Way, and we have a minor subdivision as well.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a motion? Okay, the mayor made a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? Aye, we're adjourned.